Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Town of Foxborough's Board of Selectmen March 19th meeting. I'll go through the agenda items briefly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input. At 7:05, we have chairman's update. At 7:15, we have a guest, Mark Morris, a business manager from the Southeastern Regional Vocational Technical School, to talk about their budget. At 7:35, we have an advertised public hearing from our Sue Thibodeau, our animal control officer, about a bull mastiff at 30 Fairway Lane. At 7:50, building committee, Bill Euchner, Deb Spinelli, superintendent, are going to come in to speak to us about the Borough School. At 8:15, we're continuing the discussions for the item of entertainment licenses and the indemnification agreements to some of the stadium events. At 8:25, we're going to discuss goals of the Racino Committee and appoint members. At 8:40, we're going to be discussing with Kevin and, actually, Randy's not here today, right?
No,
okay.
he's at Common School.
Okay. The fiscal year 14 operating budget and our annual town meeting warrant review. At 8:55, the item on the agenda is the Oak Street property legal opinion. And at 9:05, we're going to enter into executive session for two reasons. One, negotiation with non-union personnel, and then review the executive session minutes that we have on file. And then we have a bunch of action item lists. So, Lorraine, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Before we go into citizens' input, I just wanted to ask for a moment of your time for a silent meditation for Robert Gran. Robert was an Army Air Force veteran of World War I. Recently passed away, and he was a resident of Foxborough for almost 60 years. He was a mechanical engineer for the Foxborough Company for about 30 years until his retirement. He was a trustee director of the Foxborough Savings Bank, one of the original members of the Board and Library Planning Committee, the Building Committee, and a trustee, past member of the St. Albans Lodge in Foxborough, and most impressively, Robert Gran was a 30-year member, left his mark on Foxborough as past president and member of the Foxborough Historic Society for 30 years. So if we can just have one moment of silent meditation for Robert Gran. Is that yours, Linda?
Wow.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, and his family appreciates that. Anyone under citizens' input?
Do? I think Jimmy said it was probably Bob. It's something
Could
you
have been
do,
Bob,
so.
yeah. Timing. Won't let that happen again. Okay, so it's 7:05. Nobody for citizens' input. A couple items on chairman's update. We've got two more meetings before April 30th, which is the election. And I remember last year when we did our town manager's review, it was after the election and members had changed. And one of the items that we talked about last year was, is it fair to have new members evaluate a town manager when they haven't worked with him before, and perhaps a member that is no longer on the board not be able to review somebody he's worked with all year. So there's two meetings left, April 2nd and April 16th, and one I'm going to ask for really a two-step process. If it's okay with the board, on our next meeting, April 2nd, ask town manager Kevin Pecos to come in with a self-evaluation, compilation of the quarterly reports and a list of completed and status of the ongoing projects from our goals and objectives. And that would discuss that at the April 2nd. You'd be prepared with a draft of your own evaluation. If you remember, we did our town manager evaluation forms that are now part of Kevin's contract. I'm going to ask Lorraine as the clerk to make sure everyone has that for April 2nd and fill it out, hold it as draft, and then also the spreadsheet of last year's goals and objectives. So we'll listen to Kevin's self-evaluation, have that in mind, and then we'll come back on April 16th 2 weeks later, and we'll do his evaluation. And I think that's the fairest to Kevin. And again, this issue came up last year. Is it fair to do Kevin's evaluation in public? And I think we absolutely have to. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but he's a public employee, and it's actually part of your contract to have the board evaluate him, and it doesn't meet the requirements to do it in executive session. So I just wanted to, in case some of the new members are uncomfortable, that's why we're doing it in public. Does that make sense, Kevin, for your schedule?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Just so, after the meeting on the 2nd, where we get the report from Kevin, then we would meet with him individually, and then everybody would submit their write-ups back to me for the next meeting.
So between
Okay.
the 2nd and the 16th, you'll have everybody's.
Okay.
And then what we did last year, I was the one that compiled it. I had everybody's individual,
Mhm.
and then I took the time, put it all together, and then did a rating system, a
Okay.
weighted rate. So it's, 1 through 5, and that's
Yep.
where it fell.
Okay.
Goals and objectives, I wanted to start in May, starting fresh with reviewing the existing goals and objectives. So we're not going to do that before April 30th, but in May, put that on the agenda for the following year. So when you get the goals and objectives for Kevin's review, keep that in mind if you wanted to strike anything or add things. And you'll also have an update from Kevin on where we stand on all the goals. One other, couple small items. I had met with the town moderator and a couple of members of the AdCom a few weeks ago, and I had asked if there's another member that wanted to join with the AdCom members and Frank to kind of talk about things we could do better for town meeting, warrant articles, the way that they're listed and all that good stuff. Somebody emailed me back, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. Okay, do you want to do that as well? All right. So can you reach out to probably Larry? Larry, you were at that meeting, right?
Yes.
And find out a time that works with Kevin, myself, Lorraine, Frank, and whoever else is going to be on the AdCom. Two other items, and they're kind of related. At the beginning of the year, we talked about going into putting together a policy for reporting child abuse, and I know it started, and I want to expedite that, and I wanted a board member to kind of jump on that and work with Kevin and Cindy and put things together. And I was going to see, I know you had some ideas and some literature that you sent over.
Yeah, I sent it, well, Lorraine had already had discussions with Kevin, I guess, so.
Okay. But
I
did you want to?
I got two things from two board members,
Yep.
both of which are going to be pretty useful.
Mhm.
The statute with some provisions in it, and a draft policy, which is great because we couldn't find one anywhere.
Yep.
It doesn't seems to be no municipality has one, so I think we've got a template we can use and adapt now.
Okay.
So that's good.
So would you mind working with Kevin?
Sure.
And put a goal of May 1st, that gives us a month and a half to kind of put the draft, and then we can bring it back to the board. I think that's important, and I just don't want that to lag behind.
We're actually going to discuss a draft tomorrow at the department head meeting, so once that gets amended, then I should have something to send to you probably next week to look at.
Okay.
So it'll be much sooner than May 1st.
And this is, just to remind everybody, this is for the non-mandated. There are certain employees of the town that are mandated through the schools, but this is for the kind of the group that doesn't have a mandate to do that. And the last issue, the Sheehan issue, we met on February 26th with the police chief in a group to kind of get an update, and I think a month has gone by. If we can put them on the docket for April 2nd, that'd be a little over a month to get a refresher, an update of where they are.
Executive session.
Executive session, is that okay with the board?
Mhm.
And you think that's a month is, I talked to you about this, Kevin, but
Yep.
a month is enough time?
Can you give them a heads up on that, yeah.
Heads up to
That
the
we're going to
chief?
be, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they're going
Kevin,
to come
yeah.
in too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll reach out to them as well? Okay. And right on time, that's the chairman's update. Oh, one more thing. I got an email from Lauren Bitar. Lauren Bitar is the unsung hero. She's very quiet. But she asked if I could read this regard to some of the, it's a request for volunteers. For any resident interested in being part of the Medical Reserve Corps or future Community Emergency Response Team, Foxborough Citizens Corp. is looking for volunteers for these emergency preparedness response groups. You do not have to be a medical profession to be involved. 2 free classes are coming up next month. The first one is Monday, April 1st, and the second one is Monday, April 8th. Both classes are at 6:30 at the McGinty Room over at the Public Safety Building. And so if those wishing to be part of the MRC or CERT teams, if you can go to Foxborough Citizens Corp., and it's OUGH, foxboroughcitizenscorp.org. You can register right on there, or call the Health Department at 543-1207. And that's one group that was very instrumental, working with the police chief, the fire chief, the town manager, all of us, all the departments. They're all volunteers, and it's a great group to be part of. So we have at 7:15, a minute early, is there a okay, do you want to come up to the table for Southeastern Regional back-to-school budget? So, and this,
Oh, yeah, sure.
this was emailed, and does everyone have a copy?
Is it all right, Jim, if I, is it with Mark? Okay.
Really listen to it, do you?
Not socially.
Not socially.
I believed it.
Welcome, Steve. Good to see you again.
Good evening, thank you for having us. Mark Morris, the School Business Manager for Southeastern Regional, and with me, I'm sure you know Steve Uden, the representative from Foxborough on the school committee.
Great, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Did everybody get a copy of the budget? I'll quickly start, if you, on page 1, just kind of go over the enrollment this year at Southeastern Regional. This year's enrollment is up from last year, from 1319 to 1342, and in Foxborough, the enrollment is actually down from 24 students to 17 students, so down 7 students overall. But if you do, I looked overall at the enrollment, even in Olive Range, it looks like the enrollment overall is down in Foxborough, not just at Southeastern Regional, but throughout the community. So, and that being said, Foxborough's percentage of the weighted average of the district's enrollment is 1.3% of all students in Foxborough. If you turn to the next page, I'll quickly go over how we, and this is now is the proposed FY14 budget. The school committee has not voted on this budget yet. They have taken into consideration, and they'll probably be voting at our next meeting on April 9th.
Okay. All right, and I'm sorry, Steve, did you introduce yourself for everybody? Your name and your title?
Yeah.
How you fit into this?
My name is Steve Uden, and I'm the representative for Foxborough on the school committee for Southeast Regional Voc
Okay.
High School.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the breakdown of our budget, if you look at the foundation budget, is made up of 3 parts. The state aid being $13,473,735, local assessments being $7,342,662, and the school taking $200,000 from their excess and deficiency account to make up a total of $21,016,397 for the foundation budget for the FY14 proposed budget for the school.
Does everybody know what the E&D is? If you'd like, that's our excess and deficiency fund, which is sort of a rainy
The
day
rainy
fund.
day
It's not
account.
free cash, it's a rainy day fund.
Okay.
The next section is the transportation for the regional schools. As we all know, based on the state law, should be funded at 100%, but unfortunately, it's never been funded by the state at 100%. So my one word there is, or little spiel is, if you do see your state reps, legislators, let them know that that's regional transportation for regional schools should be funded at 100%, because that, again, does affect the community. So with our transportation costs being $1,266,255, the state aid being $676,000, that means the difference being assessed to the communities of $590,255. And if we do receive more back than what's been projected by the governor right now, that money would go back to reduce the assessments to the communities based on the average weight of the enrollment. And as I'm sure you're aware, just recently the governor had some 9 seat cuts, which cut regional transportation another 1%. So unfortunately, they're not moving back in the right direction, they're going backward.
Now, on that particular cost, if, it seems like the budget's all prorated per percentage of the,
enrollment,
now, say if we have a certain percentage of Foxborough students in that school, but they're not taking transportation, and they're not using the transportation budget, are they
Correct,
still
that's not
assessed?
how it's determined by the weight of the average students per enrollment in the school, not by how many students take transportation or not.
Okay. All right.
And to be honest with you, we only have 5 students that don't qualify for transportation because they're less than a mile and a half from the school. So I told them. Down below, the next section, you'll see our capital costs. So as you're aware, we have the building project that's in place right now, and that payment is $436,325, with $244,325 coming from excess and deficiency, and the local assessment that's been there for capital every year at $192,000 to the communities. Below that, you'll see the first line being the ESCO payment, which is outside of operating budget after the 3 years. If you recall, about 4 years ago, the school was in a position where we were going to have to build a wastewater treatment plant on our property. And we had a town order to do that. We entered in an energy contract with Amoresco. We were able to reduce our water consumption and lift that ban so that we did not have to build the wastewater treatment plant on the school. In turn, for the first 3 years, we're allowed to charge that cost to our capital budget, and the school committee voted to do that for the first 3 years. Now, being in the 4th year, it has to come outside of the capital budget. So that, outside of the operating budget and being capital. So the total cost is $250,368, and the school committee has voted to pick up 2/3 of that cost, assessing 1/3 to the communities, $85,368.
Do we want to put that in perspective of
Well,
if
on the
we had
bright
to
side,
build
is
it?
if we
Yeah.
didn't do the energy contract and save on the water consumption, we'd probably be looking around $4 to $5 million today to build a wastewater treatment plant on the property versus the $250,000 that it's cost us. And also this year, for the first time, in July, Chapter 40, Section S13D was passed that allows the school committee to vote a reserve fund to pay for compensated liabilities to employees when they retire. So we had in our audit a liability that was done of roughly $149,000 would be our outstanding liability at any 1 year if everybody was to retire and take advantage of their compensated absences. So basically, it's sick time that they have that they get back. So that being $40,500 being assessed to the communities. So basically, what does that do to your assessment, I guess, is the main question. So if you want to flip 2 more pages, to the one that says Southeastern Regional School District, and it's got the FY14 District Aid worksheet.
Bro, it's item 99, if you go to the most left, it's item 99.
And we'll start on the bottom half there. If you go across, Foxborough's assessment is down $76,678 from last year. So FY13 was $284,624, and the projected FY14 is $207,947. This year I did something a little different. I'm not sure, because I know a lot of the questions I get when I come to the different meetings are, what affects my assessment, or what affects the assessment to go up or go down? There's not just one factor. So if you take a look at the second sheet there. Did you get this copy? Yep. In the bottom half of that section there are the factors.
Yeah.
Are the factors that affect the assessment. So as I stated when we opened up, student enrollment is down. So that's in red going down. So that's a huge factor that will affect the assessments. Enrollment as a percentage of the community, as I also mentioned, is also slightly down from 1.39 to 0.98%. Enrollment as a percentage of the school district, again, is down from 1.82 to 1.27. Your municipal revenue growth factor is slightly up at 3.11%. And what the governor's announced in his package now, or his budget, is that any town that was above contribution, their minimum contribution target share, it would be brought down to where they should be, and any town that was below their contribution target share would be brought up to where they should be. The only thing I want you to take into effect is the governor's budget hasn't passed yet. But if what he's proposed passes, that would bring this Foxborough back down, because you're above your target share, 70 formula. So it'd bring you down by 2.05%. And that also affects your contribution to come down. So if you just flip the page, on the left-hand side, highlighted in yellow, is your target share that the Department of Education or the government has determined. If you go to the right, the first highlighted yellow is what you actually pay, $20,676,000. So that means you're above target share. So in the governor's proposal, he'd be bringing you down to the $20,122,847. And that's also one of the factors that helps reduce your assessment. And if you flip the page, as I stated, last year, Foxborough's enrollment in their school between Foxborough, Southeastern, and Norfolk County was 2,827 students, and this year, 2,796 students. And then the breakdown there, if you look at Oliver Ames is down from 2,787 to 2,765. Southeastern is down from 24 to 17, and Norfolk County is down from 16 to 14 students. So enrollment's down across the board in all schools.
Why is that?
I'd say high school age students are probably on a decline in the communities.
Is it nothing to do with the dropout rate at all, or?
Nothing to do with dropout rate. I can't say for sure, but I wouldn't say. I'd say, seeing that there's a decline across the board, I'd say it's just the school age population is declining in the town.
But it sticks out if you look at the 9 communities.
Correct.
Our enrollment dropped 41%, which is well above everybody else.
Correct, that's Southeastern.
Is there an allotment for what town can, how many students can go from Foxborough? or-
There's no allotment.
But you have
It's
a cap on how many students the school
We have a
can
cap on the students, correct, but not on a cap where they come from, correct.
With the amount of students you have now, is there room in that cap, or is it?
We
long
just
till
accepted
it-
650 applications with 375 spots.
Yeah, the competition is huge right now for
get in.
Southeastern.
So we
Yeah.
have more students than we have spaces.
Right.
Now, could it be the fact that we dropped 41%? It's not that the applications aren't going in, it's that they're not being accepted?
Again,
We didn't-
we don't, when they take in the applications, it's a blind application process, so we don't know where the students are applying from, so we can't say that there were
Okay.
20 students from Foxborough and only 10 got in or 5 got in.
Okay.
We can tell you how many were accepted once they're accepted, but we wouldn't be able to go back and tell you where they applied from, because they don't, that's not one of the criteria
Sure,
when
okay.
they apply.
Thank you.
Is Oliver Ames comparable? I've only been to that school a couple of times this year. for
Comparable
sporting
in-
event. As far as the size of the school, is regional school also Oliver Ames, or is that just for Easton itself?
I'm sorry,
Oliver Ames is in Easton, right?
correct.
Is that an Eastern school, or is that a
public
regional
school.
school?
It's the public school for Easton.
They just have a different name.
It's a comprehensive school. The vocational school, which is Southeastern Regional, we're a vocational school where we teach the trades as well as academics.
Oh, Rams doesn't. It's just a regular public.
Right, it's an enormous school.
Oliver Ames.
Yeah.
Well, you could tell by the enrollment, was it 2,700, was it, I think, we just looked at?
It's like almost Brockton-esque.
Yeah, 2,700 versus 1,342, so it's almost double. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them or go over any concerns.
Any questions from the board?
I crunched a few numbers, just so you know, and that we can verify this later, but even though the student population goes up and down in a sine wave, I figured with the numbers that I had in front of me based on enrollment, going back to, I think it was 2010, that Foxborough averaged an increase per year of $700 per student as we went up. So I'd like to just find.
I didn't crunch, I'd have to.
Yeah,
look up those
we can
numbers, yeah.
find a mean for that or something like that, but it's a nice report to have here. But, things are going up, but the spending of Southeastern is conservative and I think very well managed.
Yeah, if you ever have
If you put it towards other school systems, it's pretty tight. There's a graph there that shows it, just the Southeastern.
Yeah, If you take a look at Southeastern's spending, the dotted line with the diamonds are the actual net school spending for the school, and the black line with a space is the required net school spending. So you can see that Southeastern's right at net school spending. We're not above.
I remember a few years, it wasn't you, it was another gentleman that came in.
Lou Lopes.
Lou Lopes, yeah.
Yep.
And I remember him saying the prices should go up, but they weren't coming to us to ask us for an increase. And what they said is they went back and they implemented savings. They changed the bus routes, so they changed the hours, and the teachers did different things. And that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And you're on the school committee there, and this hasn't been in front of you yet
No,
for a
this,
vote.
right, that was pre-Steve, yeah.
Okay. So are there any things that would jump out that they're doing with, i.e., health insurance or saving programs that would interest us?
The
I see it's going down, but we also we have a 40% decrease in
The
enrollment.
roof is a great
But also,
story.
in health insurance, like I say, is we've put into place where any new employee part-time that comes in, the split has been changed from 70-30 to 65-35. So we're
Okay.
shifting some of that burden onto the employee as well. We are in the Gateway Consortium for health insurance. So this year, we're seeing, when I say modest, compared to past years, a 3.5% increase in health insurance compared to past years. Because in the past, we were with Plymouth County, and in total, we've saved over the last roughly 9 years now that we've been with the Gateway, over 18% in increases being with Gateway versus staying with the Plymouth County. And again, we've always been in close contact, and we compare ourselves again to the GIC program, because again, that's one of the requirements that if we're not as good, at least 5% savings
Yeah.
compared to GIC, then we have to move to GIC. So we're able to show those savings to the state and be able to stay with Gateway.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question, nothing to do with the budget.
Sure.
Do you have sports?
We do.
You do? The regular basketball, football, all that,
Correct.
baseball?
Hockey.
Track.
Great.
No, we
I
do.
was
We just
wondering.
actually started a lacrosse program the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that's taken off.
Great.
Yeah, Kevin, I was going to ask you if you had any questions.
Just a note for the board, Southeast Regional has long had a reputation for probably the most cost-efficient school system in the entire region. They continue to operate on incredibly efficient margins. Their fleet maintenance is better than anyone, ours included. The innovations they've made as a member of the Gateway Health Group are pretty widely known, and we actually watch what they do and learn from them and try to copy some of the things they do. We may have some wrinkles for you guys to look at.
Oh, that'd be great.
But they're just innovative across the board, and the work they did on the roof recently that you approved, by using their own surplus to leverage the state money is just another indication of how they do their work. Although it looks a little tough over there right now with the renovation project, ordinarily when you go in that school, it is absolutely sparkling. From a physical point of view, there is no school around that can compare to them. It really is remarkable, and if the board hasn't had an opportunity to go over there, they have a wonderful open house every year that you should take advantage of, because this really is a real special place, Southeast Regional.
Yeah, I wanted to go to that last year and ended up conflicting with something. So could you notify the board when that is?
We can let you know what it is, and if you're ever in the area or it's not during open house, please just let me know. We can arrange something, some type of visit, or take advantage of taking a look at the new gym that we just constructed, and take a look at the construction project in place now, and then maybe come back and see it when it's completed.
I know you got his card last time he was here, a week or so ago.
I
Do
think
you
I
have
have-
another one?
Yeah, you had promised you'd do the sign for us.
Well,
in
how much
common.
does the card cost? Because I'm trying to keep the budget down.
So you've been in a school committee member, a volunteer for that for
Thanks,
1 year?
Mark.
Just about, yeah. After the AdCom term ended, I went into it officially, and then there was an election in November that went uncontested, and so I stepped into it for that. But Mark and the principal in lieu have also worked with us here in Foxborough. We have a member of the community who has a foundation. He's going to work with the Voc Tech School to help make some senior projects and do some motivational speaking based on his past professional experiences and his new entrepreneurial ventures. And then I work for a company here in town that is opening up its doors to, in the last few months, we've decided to help out with a co-op program at our company. So it's good to be from Foxborough and part of the Voc Tech. The budget meetings aren't always a cookout, but
Stick around
we
for
get
us
around.
in about an hour.
No, it's a remarkable place, and the students are mind-blowing.
It is.
Good to hear.
Great.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Is there anyone in the audience that had a question? All right, Mark, thank you very
No,
much.
thank
Appreciate you for coming in.
Thank you.
Safe drive.
I appreciate it. Snow over? Or?
Who knows? Tomorrow's the first day of spring, who thought?
Was it a few years back, April 1st, wasn't it? We had a snowstorm?
That's right, yeah.
97.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, we're actually a minute or so early from a public, we might as well. Sue, you want to come up to the table and we'll just wait a minute to start? You can actually read it into the record. Hi, Sue.
The Board of Selectmen pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, subsection 157, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, March 19th, 2013, at 7:35 PM in the Andrew A. Gala Jr. Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Massachusetts, to consider the restraint or disposal of a bull mastiff from the town of Foxborough. The dog is owned by David and Donna Searman, 30 Fairway Lane, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Interested parties are invited to attend this hearing. Board of Selectmen, Foxborough, Mass.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of information, I disclosed to the town clerk that I am a resident of Fairway Lane.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone from the Searman family that would be here as well? Okay. Why don't we do this? If you want to introduce yourself, we'll go through here, and then,
You should probably bring him up, don't you think, and have him sit at the table.
Sure.
yeah, we'll do that. Okay, you're welcome to come to the table. Good evening.
Me.
I assume you're David Searman?
Yes, I am.
I think what we've done in the past is if you wanted to present the findings, and Kevin, you want to advise after that, and then we can go back and forth.
Alrighty. I was notified by Brigham and Women's Urgent Care that an adult male had been bitten by a dog. That dog, Rufus, a bull mastiff, belongs to Mr. Searman. This happened on February 21st. Mr. Searman was out walking Rufus when he did bite this person. The dog was on lead at the time. Mr. Searman normally maintains a distance between Rufus and people, as he can be reactive when outside the home. On this occasion, he had stopped to visit with someone, and the person that was bitten got closer than he would usually allow to happen. It was a single bite, a superficial bite of the upper arm, and there's no other bite history on Rufus. There was only one incident in the past where Rufus was left the property and went after another dog that was being walked by. I think that was soon after they had acquired him. They realized that they needed to take him off leash when they were taking him out to the fenced-in area. That was an isolated incident, September of 2011. Contacted their vet. They don't have any warnings on his record to indicate that they have an issue with him in the office. When I went to the home, I did not. He was mild-mannered and non-aggressive.
Right, and then you also have a recommendation on here as well?
I do, and that recommendation is that Rufus be muzzled when walked off the property. The Searmans are in agreement with this. I did issue an interim order, and I'm presenting it to the board so that, with the recommendation that you make it permanent. We have new Chapter 140 laws have been updated. You're now required to decide, first you would decide whether to call the dog dangerous, and then if you did that, you choose from a menu. And number 3 would be to muzzle the dog. So you no longer have the option of writing your own order. You pick from the options they give you.
Okay, and this
I
is...
provided you with
yeah.
a copy of those regulations and the definition.
Okay, so you are, and your recommendation is deeming it is a dangerous dog? And that would bring us to the top of page 3 of 5 recommendations, okay. And I usually mention this at the beginning, but where this is a public hearing, you do understand if you wanted to bring an attorney to represent you, and you choose not to. And it's also a public hearing, so we will go to the public at the end, but Kevin, do you want to jump in and...
Mr. Chairman, the statute requires that the board reach a finding based on the testimony provided, and unless Mr. Searman in any way disagrees with the animal control officer's representations, then Sue has given you the language for the finding. So that would be...
I don't have
the
any
first.
objection to, in the bite report here. I'll just say we did get a basket muzzle for Rufus. It had to be custom made, given the shape and the shortness of the muzzle, but it was delivered today. So it'll take a couple of days to introduce it to him and get him comfortable with it. But he's responsive to food and clicker training, so I think that'll go well. And that's our intent, is to muzzle him as we walk him going forward. In addition, I always put on 2 collars and 2 leashes as, it's like belt and suspenders kind of things. And he's been very amenable to that and receptive to it, so I'll just continue that practice also.
Okay. And then the last part is the leash of 300-pound tensile strength of 3 feet?
Yeah. They're commercial, or, what you can buy. The leashes I use are what you can buy like a Petco or something like that. And one is, whatever that is, an inch and a quarter, fairly thick. It's some kind of cloth weave of some sort. So I'll double check. I'm sure it's 300 pounds tensile strength, but I'll double check that.
Okay,
So
because
both of
that's a
them.
specific suggestion.
It's
in the
part
law.
of the language, yeah. And if you have any, I did find a company that would custom make actually for a reason. So if it does not
Okay.
meet it, this company said they can provide.
Okay.
Thank you. Open it up for the board. Any questions, comments?
No, it sounds like Susan and David have spoken about it. I, get a little worried about you taking your dog and hearing that he's pulled you, but I totally understand. I have only got a pug, and he can pull me, so I know how they can get. But it's great that you recognize the situation and.
Yeah. We realized pretty early on that he has issues, so I've been, on average, walking him probably about 3 times a day, successfully before this incident, for about 18 months, so.
Yeah.
The circumstances were bad. He should not do what he did, but I think I can handle him. And with the muzzle, that's an extra layer of
That
protection.
helps, yeah.
So,
That's good.
yeah.
That's good.
Any other questions from the board?
Are there any small or young children around the dog when he's in the household?
We have no children in the house, no. He has been with my wife's nieces, who were, I think, 9 and 11 at the time. We have had small children come to the door with their parents, like visiting or selling stuff or whatever. Rufus will be friendly, stick his nose out the door, but he typically doesn't leave the threshold in those instances, so.
I would just caution to make sure that if a dog bites, I would really be concerned around being around smaller children.
Sure.
Any child under 18, actually. I wouldn't want to see it come to that level. I mean, it just happened in a neighboring community twice, and it was not a very good reflection on the owner of the dog or the board.
Right.
So, just if you could be very careful about that.
Understand.
Any other
Yeah.
questions from the board?
Residing on the street, and our neighborhood has Fairway Lane plus their 2 side streets, and there are young children around, so that was one of my concerns. But if the muzzling is permanent with the short leash, if you feel comfortable with this, I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with that.
my routine is, as I walk down the driveway, if I see people walking, coming down the street, I just, do your turn, go back in and walk in the backyard or something. If we are on the walk and I hear kids playing in yards and things like that, I'll either cross the street or just take a different route. I always keep at least 100 yards of vision so I can anticipate, people coming and going. And as I say, that's been successful in the past, and so we have a routine, and I think
That's good.
it
Once he
works,
gets used
so.
to that too, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? This is a public hearing, so is there anyone in the audience that would have a question or comment or wanted to participate? All right, hearing none.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Linda. Any more comment? Any more discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to close the public hearing. Discussion?
So we need a motion that includes the finding and also the,
The finding would be
Taken.
one motion.
okay, two separate motions.
Penalty, if any, restraint or whatever, would be a second motion.
Okay. So I move that the Board of Selectmen deem Rufus a dangerous dog.
Second.
Motion made, seconded by Linda. Further discussion?
I just have a question that I just thought of, I'm sorry. Do we have to notify the neighborhood that this dog has been deemed a dangerous dog? We do
Didn't
not?
say anything in there.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, 0. Motion carries 5-0 to deem the dog dangerous.
Okay. I move that when removed from the premises of the owner or the premises of the person keeping the dog shall be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain or other tethering device having a minimum tensile strength of 300 pounds and not exceeding 3 feet in length.
Second.
Motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Linda. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Any further motions?
That's
Okay.
it.
No, that's it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
for being very cooperative. Appreciate it.
So,
Thank
thanks,
you, Sue.
David.
Yep.
And we are 5 minutes from our next appointment. Let's go to the action items. I think I recall there's two meeting minutes. Okay, there's meeting minutes from February 26th.
I move that we approve the minutes
Oh,
of
no, I got-
February
no, I
26th.
got-
I know, but when I do that, then it's discussion. and
Oh,
you can
okay.
do that.
Oh, all right, okay.
All right, Linda moves to approve,
Second.
seconded by Lorraine. All those in favor? No,
No,
just
just-
joking. Any more discussion?
No, on Diana, on page 7, the 4th paragraph, and I wrote this down for you, so just in case you didn't get it. In the 4th paragraph, I wanted to add that I had said at the time, add a requirement that the employee remain in the town employ after requiring tuition reimbursement for a minimum time. And then also, on that same paragraph, on the last line of that paragraph, the date is December 1st, not December 31st. Okay.
Want to pass that down, Jim?
Yeah, I could know. Okay, all right.
Any more discussion on the minutes of February 26th? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, 0. Motion carries to approve with the changes. Meeting minutes from February 5th. Hear a motion?
Move to approve the meetings of March 5th.
Second?
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Lorraine. Further discussion?
Yes. On page 3, the 9th paragraph, it says Peter Pan's bus service to Logan Airport. That was what I had said. Okay. And I wrote that down for Diana.
Any more comments on the minutes, discussion? Thank you. All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0 to approve the March 5th minutes. There's paperwork here.
National Grid,
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how it's listed.
petition for joint poll.
Yeah, we have an item for the petition for a joint poll or identical poll location with a map at the intersection of Belcher Road.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and
Just
seconded.
put the poll number 16-84 in the motion.
Okay, the motion is made to approve the petition for joint or identical poll locations at Belcher Road, poll 16-84, and a new guy wire P16-84 to support P16 and Belcher Road.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Linda. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll actually have that to sign tonight as well. Okay, members of the school committee? Not school committee, sorry. School administration. I don't think there's anything in our packet for this.
No.
Bill and Debbie,
Thank you.
if you could just introduce yourself for the people that don't know you.
Debbie Spinelli, School Superintendent.
Bill Yukna, School Business Administrator.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. The process that we're in, similar to one that was undertaken a few years ago with the high school, is controlled under the MSBA's guidelines. So there's a number of steps that have to go through for us to even submit an application to the state for funding of a project. Obviously, the main steps involved were originally to do an initial kind of review of the facility. So we're talking about the Borough School. It's 46 years old. The town has done what I would say was a good job of maintaining the facility. We have done roof work 10 years ago. We did repairs to the roof itself. About 5 years ago, we did some asbestos abatement. This last summer, we repaved the entire parking lot, recurbed it. But obviously, because of the structural issues relative to the roof and the leakage and the dating of the heating systems, windows, lighting, pretty much all the mechanicals throughout the building, it didn't make a lot of sense for the school to go and just do the roof, because that's not the only issue here. And again, if we did it on our own, the town would pay 100% of that versus trying to go for reimbursement on the state level. The project obviously entails a number of issues, but as I said, the structural part of the building, similar to the high school, is actually in very good shape. The block and brick of the building itself. We have had, for the last few years, a number of roof issues where we're just trying to keep them patched and maintainable at this point. We do have leaks throughout the building that are starting to create some issues that obviously, based on the age of the roof, you really don't have another chance to go back up there and try to replace and repatch it. It's really a matter of replacing the entire surface. There also is damage underneath the roof because of the leaks. And again, when you take the entire roof off, you can repair any of those damaged steel structures or insulation issues that we'd go through. Windows, again, all single pane, just like they were in the high school. So obviously our efficiencies throughout that building are very poor in very, very severe weather. Very low temperatures. Obviously, we have a hard time maintaining, the 68-degree requirement. We have done some asbestos abatement, as I said, but obviously, again, once you get into a project of this scale, you're opening up the ceilings, and a lot of it's, sprayed on insulation that has to be stripped out. There is still some floor asbestos that needs to be removed. a little bit of piping, asbestos that needs to be removed. Heating systems, we had reviewed this last fall. While the technician felt that they could get through this year, really said that we will be lucky to get much, further in the next year or so. Again, it's original, so it's no surprise, 46-year-old facility. It's done very well for its age. Emergency power generation, again, very aged in its side. The kitchen is original, so no updates have been really done there. Some of the bigger issues really lie in a couple components. One is the bathroom facilities, the gang bathrooms and the bathrooms between classrooms. If you actually go and view them, they are, not only are they not ADA compliant, when I literally walk through the bathrooms, and I know I'm a big guy, but when I walk through the bathrooms in the classrooms themselves, shoulder to shoulder, I'll hit the doorways. So obviously, you could never get a child in there with a handicap situation. We did have a situation with a young girl who had an issue, and the only way they could really maintain that was to put on a special opening for the door. The door itself is only 28 inches wide to the gang bathrooms. So again, they don't meet any kind of current codes. So we would have to obviously do some significant work on the bathrooms to bring them up to code structure. But again, it's all doable within the structure of the building, we feel. One of the issues that the town accepted a number of years ago through the state grants was to go to full-time kindergarten. And one of the issues that created, which is one of the reasons on our elementary level that we are using virtually all of our classroom space, and have actually had to eliminate some of the classroom areas that would be into like art rooms and stuff like that had to be eliminated to do this. Was the kindergarten now, instead of taking up a half-day session in the morning, a half-day session in the afternoon, now is a full-day session for each one of those. So as an example, at the Borough School, we run 3 full-day sessions. That would have been a class and a half effectively in the past. So we lost space within the building. It is the only elementary school that we do not have a full computer lab, which means any class that is going for instruction has to be split half time into there, half into the library, and then flip, to give the kids the opportunity to be into that program. Which is also a secondary problem that's going to be creating is under the new park exams that are coming up very quickly here. They are a system exam instead of a paper exam. So they're really looking for us to be able to put children in large groups in front of computers to do that. And obviously without a full lab, that's going to be somewhat of a problem going forward. So in this whole process, as I said when I started this, there's a number of steps that need to go through. I think the Borough School has been discussed for years. I know I heard Dick Heidecker talk about it the other day at the CIP thing. It's nothing new. We knew it's a process that had to go through. But obviously what we were will try to achieve is the maximum MSBA approval, because obviously at 49%, that's a lot more palatable than having the town pay for it. The process entails the first step, which was to create the list of issues, which I will hand out to you. The second part would be that the school committee voted to approve that in the exact wording that's in this layout that I'm going to give to you. Again, very similar to what was done on the high school level. The second step is that the Board of Selectmen also have to approve this to be the statement of interest to go forward. Understand that this only is basically giving us the permission to go in front of the MSBA with a program of need. The reality is, and this is not a great reality right now, but the reality is that they normally get over 200 requests. In any given year, they're lucky if they can satisfy 40 to 50. So, and there are schools that I've already heard that obviously have what they're calling dire needs, and that's where a structural failure has occurred. And obviously they're going to be moved higher on the ladder than a town that's trying to upgrade and enhance its systems and improve its roofing and stuff like that. So it's really just getting yourself inside the queue for the first time. It could take years, quite honestly, to get to the top of the queue. And they do give you credit for at least being in the queue. So it's important that you get in as quickly as you can. But, again, just getting into it is no guarantee at all. You'll actually see in And the final wording on this, that the MSBA basically says, it's making no promises as to where you'll end up and how this, the funding will be and when the funding will be. And they want that, so that not only your board, but the school board, understands that this is just a process, and that, by doing this, you're doing nothing more than getting yourself in the queue. So, what we're here basically to do is to, again, request that the Board of Selectmen allow this project to go forward into the MSBA's queue, and then, continue with the process. We did use school money at the end of last year to hire a engineer just to highlight the major areas of concerns that we have. So again, that they could fill out the statement of interest for us as we go through the process. That's done. So we're kind of going along the lines of what we need to do. And again, this is just one more of the steps that needs to be, or hurdles that needs to be passed to move this thing forward.
So the statement of interest, that's done already based on the efforts that you did from the school
Yeah.
budget, and that's ready to go?
Right, and this basically, this wording, as I said, highlights the major areas as it's written within the statement of interest and the requirements of the statement of interest itself. There are 7 different categories in which you can qualify under, and as you can see, we're qualifying under Category 5 and Category 7. And, one is obviously the modernization and, efficiency side of the building, and the other one is dealing with program, requirements. One of the program requirements on our side at this point is really the fact that also on the preschool level, preschool, when all of our elementaries were built, none of them had the preschool requirement, which is really a special ed program. It's designed to bring kids in on early intervention so that they can obviously, hopefully, move and advance forward, so that by the time they get to pre-K, they're more capable of being in the mainstream process. It also requires that we have almost a one-to-one of standard peers to be within the program as well. So the classroom sizes are really dictated by the program size plus 50%. Or plus 100% actually. So the building and none of the classrooms within the Borough, the Taylor, or the IGO are really the right size for the type of instruction that you need to do within those and the type of therapies that you need to have available within the classroom. So part of our recommendation is that we would add 2 classrooms to the left side of the building as you face it from the front. It actually, when you look at the design from an overhead point of view, the building was built with a wing that came out on one side with 3 additional classrooms, and on the back side, those 3 classrooms didn't exist. So it actually, from a point of functionality, would work extremely well to put the 2 there. It also brings the building just a little bit closer to the area in which the pre-K is brought to and from the school, so it wouldn't encroach on the separate entranceway we have for that part of the building as well. And we own plenty of property on that side. It's not, there's not a constraint issue. I actually looked at it with Bill Caspero, and we pulled all the plans out, and there is no zoning issues or anything of that nature that would be a problem. So, our recommendation basically is to add the 2 classrooms, to fully renovate this building and bring it up to current codes, which would also include, fire suppression systems as far as alarms and stuff, which are very antiquated at this point in time. And again, all the other things I mentioned with doors, windows, lighting, heating systems, generators, and kitchens.
In terms of the 2 additional classrooms, it's also important to know that we currently provide some of the therapies for those preschoolers, which is occupational therapy, physical therapy, in the hallway. So that's really not a great idea. So if we were to be able to have 2 good-sized preschool spaces that actually met the guidelines for early childhood classrooms, then we could use one of the existing smaller spaces for therapies. So that can be, it's not only not a good idea, it's also a safety issue in some cases.
Debbie, isn't that the chosen school for special ed more than the other 2?
I'm sorry, say again?
That school prioritizes more on special ed than the other 2.
The preschool program is housed somewhere in every district. So for us, it's at the Borough. That is by nature a special education, early childhood special education program, where we have to go into the community really and find children who may have who may need early intervention or who may be showing some signs of a disability or other diagnosis that early intervention could assist with their early education. So once we know who those students are and that they're coming into a program, then to make it a really great, viable program, the best practice is that you have peers in the community who don't have those disabilities or issues, so that they have role models that are their peers. So that's why people in the community sign their children up for that preschool. But so they may be the population of preschool is one of the two: either a child who has an identified disability who needs some early intervention, or what we call an age, their peer age group. They're there. So it's a really wonderful program. But every school district has one, because that is the law.
Mm-hmm.
That we provide that, but we're not required by law to provide a generic preschool program that you may see at other agencies or the Y, I would say more generic for the general population. We are required to have a preschool for early intervention for students with disability.
Because I know a lot of parents speak highly about it, and they always want to keep their children there.
Yes.
And then they have to go to their own school district, correct?
Well, yes, because they're housed, the preschool programs at the borough, town-wide, because it's not that big. It's just a few classrooms. And then when it's time to go to kindergarten, you go to your home school. So it is hard when your child's little, you get acclimated to one building and learn to love it, but that's just where the preschool is, so.
Is the Borough School on septic, or is it tied onto the sewer?
No, it's a septic.
Septic. Putting extra classrooms in there is going to bring the student population up?
No, the student population basically stays the same. It's the fact that we reallocated room space because of adding programs at the town. It's interesting, when they started the half-day kindergarten to full-day kindergarten, it was a mixed bag. Half the population didn't want to do it, and half did. Now it's virtually down to
8 out of 10.
Yeah.
8 out of 10 of our classrooms are full day.
Mm.
So, whereas before, we might have had 10 sections, but let's translate that into AM and a PM, like in the good old days, like way back when. You would have had maybe 5 or 6 classes that are sharing the space. So you have an AM session and a PM session. But now that they're full-day classrooms, we need more. We are using more space.
Okay.
So
it's in my mind. If it's a septic system, is it 46 years old?
Right.
Is it new? Because the building permit, and if you're doing work, you're going to do a Title V inspection.
Right.
And if it fails, then you got to fix it.
Well,
But the
these-
population won't be growing.
Right.
And the lab space that Bill
bathroom.
mentioned is really.
Yeah,
it's
but
not-
you don't have to increase it, but you've got to inspect it, and
Right.
that's the
Right.
time where you're going to say,
That's-
uh-oh, if it's not working, then you got to fix it.
Yeah.
Well, and
No
again,
one looks forward to
this
that.
property sits on 22 acres. I guess my assumption would be, if we have a problem with the septic system, we would like to include it in this project and
Yeah.
get it done. So yes, we'd obviously be viewing it at the exact same time as part of the program, just to make sure that we don't have an issue. But if there is one, it would be included in the program to be rectified. I do think we have the room on the property, if we need to expand.
The 2 additional classrooms, that really meets the space needs, even with the full-day kindergarten programs there?
Yes. One of
You don't
the
need
things.
additional?
We not only need the additional, but we need them to be a little bit larger. So, for instance, we recently had an agency that comes in and looks at our kindergarten and early childhood programs for accreditation purposes for kindergarten. They look at all the facilities in the school, and they notice that our preschool space does not meet the space requirements for, they're young, there's a lot of equipment, there are movement activities, so it doesn't matter which person's, which agency's, criteria you're going by, the rooms are not large enough to accommodate what should be a quality size for a preschool program. So we would definitely put the 2 of the 3 pre-K preschool programs in the newer rooms that are going to be a little bit larger. We do have a 3rd preschool classroom, but it's a smaller group of kids with a more intensive program, and that's fine in the space that we have.
You could always use more room, to
Well,
your
that's what I
point.
was just wondering,
But again, trying to be
right.
reasonable in the process, that, we felt based on the space and the area within the property and the way it laid out, this was probably the most reasonable approach we could come up with.
And I know the school committee, and you guys put projects in line, and you think for the future. The Borough Schools, seems like, from what I've heard, the last one needs a lot of attention.
Well, the
Taylor.
Taylor needs
But-
work, but the town has done it. We did do the parking area, we did do the roof a few years back, I guess 4 years back, we did the roof on that. We've done some asbestos abatement as well in there, but again, down the road, similar issues. Heating system is old, electrical is old. Still additional asbestos throughout. So, I mean, there are things, but it's not at the same level of priority as the borough is by any means.
Any other questions from the board?
Just, is this the same type of statement of interest that we applied for the high school?
Yes.
So I know that it was a good factor that we did take very good care of our, kind of gave us some extra points during their rating because we have taken such great care of the building itself. So that will probably maybe come into play or not because it is 46. It's older than,
right.
Yeah,
it's in their original rounds, they actually gave you weighting points towards that.
Right.
Now they have shifted their weighting points more in the direction of doing work on new schools that match an existing design. So in other words, if we were going to rip the borough down and build a new one, and we were willing to accept their model school design, they would give us additional points to kind of encourage us to do that rather than go out and build our own design and go through the process. They're still supposed to give you credit, but you don't, as far as how you get into the line and the fact that you've done a good job should help you there. But they're not giving as much on the point structure anymore to additional points, credit-wise that way.
I say we just move it forward.
I move that we,
Well, actually, before we do that, there's some people that have their hands up where this is. Anyone from the audience would like to speak? Yep, Dick.
Just a couple,
The new microphone, just for you.
just a couple of points, if I may. I'd like to compliment Bill on his presentation. It was outstanding. Which is unusual for me to make that kind of statement, isn't it, Bill?
I was going to say it was unusual.
yeah,
It's waiting for the button. Now I got a question.
Uh-oh,
I gotta go.
followed by,
No, the sewage issue isn't really an issue, Jim. Those schools were designed for 25 to 27 students per room. We're running in the average of 20 these days. So you have surplus there, you have capacity, it shouldn't be an issue, shouldn't.
No, I'm not saying it's a capacity issue. I'm actually working on a school now where we're doing the exact same thing, and it just failed regardless of the number, so I'm just saying, take a look at it, that's all.
But part of the presentation material talks about the gallon and a half toilets as opposed to what they use there now, too. So this also would help in the long term. What surprised me in the report was there was no mention of the seismic issues, which is code. Seismic could be a problem there in terms of the size of the building. This is cross-bracing the steel above, but it's a gypsum deck. It causes other kinds of issues. And some shear walls within the building. Well, these can be lost within the building without too much of a hassle. But there is a cost to it. And I didn't see it in the preview I had of the report, and I think we need to add that in. The only thing I'm wondering in terms of a real question, though, is the CIP meeting talked about a $235,000 budget at this time. Is that included in the request or not?
No. The only reason the $235,000 was put out there for the CIP committee was strictly to bring it up for first time, because until such time as the state approves this application, there's no need for that money. We're not going to go forward and start designing plans or do any kind of development work. But again, it was more, as a kind of a notification that we feel that this will be coming at some point in time, and we don't want it to be the first time it comes on the scene as a surprise. So.
Well, the only problem with it is, if it is $235 for a preliminary design development kind of thing, we're talking about an $11 million building, which I don't think is the direction that we're moving. And I think on that basis, you may want to look at that 235 down the road. I see a number of 70, 80,000 max for this preliminary kind of thing. So I didn't want to get it too inflated because we're all aware of the high school problem, which leads me to the last question. You have an agreement with KBA, but you didn't go through any of the process that the state requires, the designer selection board, the advertising for bid, the hiring of an OM, the PM, and all this other good crap that they require. So the question is, given the problems we had with the estimate on the high school and so on, which I'll not elaborate this evening, the question is, should we look at that very seriously and make sure that the estimates and the work that we're doing is professional in the level of performance? That's all my concern is. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Just to address that, we don't have an agreement with KBA on the next step on this at all. The initial thing was under the requirement for going out to bid on it. Obviously, we'd have to go out, and Dick is 100% right, we'd have to go out to a full bid, scope for the next phase because of its value. Also, and Dick's right, I mean, the number of 235 is a placeholder. It's not, we don't have a proposal because obviously we don't have anything to that point, but that 235 also at that point would have to include the owner's project manager cost. And, at this initial phase, I have gotten approval already from the AG's office. I did the same thing on the library project, that we did not need to have an OPM online at this stage, because we are so far in front of the actual design or requirements that way. So this is strictly, an informational-based application. It is not a program that's actually being proposed. When you get to the second phase, which is what Dick is talking about, you actually are developing a program which would highlight the pre-K rooms and how they're laid out and their design and the usage and all of that. So at this point, I believe we're well within our duties as far as doing this on the proper basis, but we're not anywhere near that second number as to how real it is and what the requirements are under it.
And again, Bill, you've already done that effort. You've put the stuff together. It's just you're looking for authority to move it forward.
Right.
Now, did you say the school committee voted on it, or they need to vote on it?
No, they voted on it already. That's one of the, and that's, again, when they opened this thing up, they opened it up the beginning of January. They warn you right up front, you've got a very short timeline because of all the votes that have to be taken. I literally have, this exact document needs to be in your minutes. That's exactly the way it was last time with the vote. I need a copy of that set of minutes back, so it has to be after you approve it in your next meeting, certified by the town clerk, and my final step is before the 10th of April. I've got to have all these things into the state. So, we've been kind of fighting the timeline here, trying to get everything done, but...
So the statement of interest on February 25th, that's not this, that's a separate document?
That's the full document that has, the rest of the breakdown to it.
Okay, got it. Okay, any other questions from the audience? Members of the board, want to make a motion?
So I move that the board supports and approves the Foxborough Public Schools Administration to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA.
Second?
As written.
As written
In the March 19th.
on the March 19th memo.
Okay, motion was made, seconded by Lorraine. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. So,
Want
thank
us
you,
to
Bill.
sign
Thank
this
you.
now?
Just wish us luck
And
getting
no,
in
Because
line.
again, I need your actual
Yeah.
minutes.
What,
final.
So you want this attached to the minutes?
No,
or
it has
you
to be
want this
actually
typed
in the body of the minutes, yeah.
Yes.
You have
I can
this in
send
like
you-
a Word?
Yes. That is a very good question.
The 49%, is that, that's the most you can get?
No,
There's different
it
programs,
ranges,
right?
it ranges really on the community, because they do evaluation somewhat on what they classify as need, I guess, because at one point, we were much higher, we were close to 70%. And, obviously, I don't see that we would be dropping at this point. I'm not sure that we'd be also gaining, because our communities are far worse off than we are as far as need, so.
Okay, thank you both, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Actually, right on time. The next item is the entertainment licenses, the indemnification agreements that we've been working on. Kevin, do you have hard copies of those?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to talk the board through this because it's kind of complicated and want to be sure we get it right. There's two motions coming around. The first motion on the top is for the board to approve the concerts, the Kenny Chesney, Taylor Swift, and Bon Jovi, which all occur after July 1st. Now, your current motion approves those concerts through, conditional, through the 25th of March, dependent upon the successful negotiation of an indemnity agreement and that there be insurance in place which insures the town against claims that would arise out of the conduct of the police officers who are detailed to provide security there. What is now in place, following many, many weeks of discussion between our council, special counsel, and counsel for the craft organization, is that we have indemnification agreements that are in place and are signed, and they are actually here in the office, signed and approved. However, we do not yet have insurance in place. That continues to be negotiated, and while I'm quite optimistic that we will achieve that, we don't have it as of tonight, and we will not have it by the 25th of March, when your previous contingent motion expires. So what this motion does is it licenses the 5 concerts, removes the contingency for indemnification agreement, and says plainly, that is now agreed, but continues the contingency for the insurance to be negotiated and in place, and provides all the way till June 30th for that event to occur. Rather than have you keep doing this every 30 days, in consultation with the lawyers, we jointly decided to recommend to you that you make it through June 30th because it's going to take a bit of time to get this in place. So that's the first motion, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Okay. Well, why don't we, before we vote on the first motion, why don't you explain the second motion so we have it in context?
The second motion takes the soccer games and it acknowledges that the soccer games which occur prior to June 30th or July 1st are now approved with no condition because our insurance, the town's insurance, is in place. The indemnity agreements are now signed and in place. The new insurance policy to be negotiated after July 1st is not in place. So the second motion authorizes the soccer games through June 30th unconditionally, continues to authorize the soccer games after July 1, but with the condition that the insurance still has to be negotiated.
Just to kind of take it in broader context, this has been going on for many months now. We've held up the full approval for the different concerts and then the soccer. But it's imperative that we, with the soccer Revolution game season starting, I think that was a catalyst to get this done tonight. And also to put it in further context, I mean, there has, it sounds like it's just for the people at home, it sounds like it's a pretty easy issue on indemnification or insurance, but there's been many hours put in this by Kevin, our town council, our council from Maya, craft organization council. I don't think everyone got exactly what they wanted. I think everyone got most of it, and it allows us to go forward. Unfortunately, we don't have the insurance policy after June 30th, just because we're not there yet with Maya. So I think this gets everybody to where we need to be as best as both sides can, with the second effort coming right before June 30th. So it allows everyone to move forward with these two separate motions. Any discussion on the first motion? Any motions on the first motion?
I can read the motion, and I just had a question in terms of the status of the insurance information.
Mm-hmm.
That, where are we with that right now, Kevin?
There's three options for how it can occur. The two that are more likely are that the craft organization will take a separate policy which will insure the town, and they will pay for it directly. That's sort of the plan A. Plan B is that the town will take an endorsement on its policy, which the craft organization will pay for. The reason Plan B is not quite as good is because losses that occur on that endorsed policy will accrue to the losses on our entire array of policies and will affect premium. And it's very hard to assess the incremental effect of that, so we prefer to have it a completely separate policy so losses don't affect the rest of the town's insurance. But for very, very technical reasons, we may or may not be able to accomplish that. It really is in the hands of the underwriters at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Just, I'm thankful that everybody's worked together to come to this resolution so that everyone can move on, so that's good.
And be protected.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to hear a motion for motion number 1 on the indemnity.
So, motion to modify the vote taken at the January 15th, 2013 meeting of this board to approve the applications for the following concerts at Gillette Stadium. Kenny Chesney, August 23rd and 24th, 2013. Taylor Swift, July 26th and 27th, 2013. And Bon Jovi, July 20th, 2013, by acknowledging satisfaction by the applicant of the condition requiring the execution of an indemnification agreement in a form satisfactory to and approved by this board, and by extending the second condition regarding obtaining liability insurance for such events, insuring both the applicant and the town in a form satisfactory to and approved by this board through and until July 1st, 2013. All remaining conditions of said application approvals remain in full force and effect.
Motion made, seconded.
Second.
Motion made by Lorraine, seconded by Mark. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
I move that the board approves the applications for soccer. Do you want me to list all the dates?
I have to read it.
Oh, you have to read it?
Well, I don't have to, I mean, do you want to read it?
No. Go
I
ahead.
think you have the same thing, right?
Yeah, the same
The
thing.
date, yeah, but it's okay. Go ahead.
It's
Yeah.
10:13.
Why don't you finish? You started the
You
same.
started it?
I think you just stuck
My
on the
only
dates,
question
right?
was, do I have to read all the dates for the soccer?
No, you
games?
don't. All you need to do is put in where it says soccer dates, parenthetically, Revolution 2013 soccer season.
What's that?
Covered.
There's a correction in the date.
Well, I probably would have read that was 2013, not 1013, but that's okay. Thanks for that, though.
I missed it.
For the soccer, and acknowledges satisfaction by the applicant of the condition requiring the execution of an indemnification agreement in the form attached hereto, and approved by this board for soccer events occurring prior to or on June 30th, 2013. The board acknowledges that existing insurance coverages, together with the other conditions imposed herein, are acceptable, and for events to occur on or after July 1st, 2013. Conditions said license on this applicant obtaining liability insurance for such events, insuring both the applicant and the town in form satisfactory to and to be approved by this board.
Second?
All right, motion made on the soccer, Revolution, motion made by Linda, seconded by Lorraine. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Look at that, right on time. The next item is we're calling it the Racino Review Committee. And just to step back a little bit, if you recall, we had members of the Town of Plainville and the Mass Gaming Commission come and give us an overview of the regulations and the process and where they are right now in Plainville. We asked the public if there was any volunteers that would want to be on a committee to evaluate or look into the developments in Plainville. That's been out there for a couple weeks. We have directed everybody interested to submit an application to Town Hall, and we have 6 applications that were submitted in our packet. We have a 7th one that came in today, so we have 7 people interested. The application has their qualifications on it, and all that, basically a resume. What we were missing before we appoint a committee was the goals and objectives of that committee, and Kevin handed out a list. Does anyone have one?
Pass them to me to pass down.
Okay. So what I wanted to do was look at the purpose of...
We already have it.
We already have it.
Yeah, we have it.
Now you got 2.
Okay. So 6 duties on here, and if we wanted to add more or take some off, we can do that, but let's agree on kind of the goals of the committee, and then we can talk about the membership. So the purpose: to investigate Massachusetts state statutes pertaining to racino licensing, designation of neighboring communities, impact of Plain Ridge proposal, make a complete report to the Board of Selectmen. Membership: 7 town citizens, with preference given to 1 person experienced in law, 1 person in planning and development, and 1 person in finance. The duties of 6 listed: research and understand the Mass gaming laws with special emphasis on racino provisions, provide the Board of Selectmen with recommendations regarding the Gaming Commission regulations concerning, quote, neighboring communities. 3, determine what funding, if any, is available to the town for mitigation studies. 4, assist the Board of Selectmen with application for the mitigation study funding. Duty number 5, assist the MCPPO with procuring a consultant as funding allows. And item number 6, duty number 6 is working with the consultant or consultants to study all aspects of Plain Ridge impacts on Foxborough and recommend mitigation. And this is an appointment to June 30th of 2014.
Mr. Chairman, it's actually to March, 1 year from today. We had a disconnect in the office, but it's a lot easier to, I think the chair indicated you wanted 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
So the appointment slips are all prepared that way. A lot easier to change the charge than it is to change all those slips.
Okay, great. So those are the 6 items that we had asked Kevin to put together, the duties. Before we get into the applicants, does anyone want to add or subtract from that list?
Did any of the applicants have any experience in law? That was one of the things we preferred. Do they? I don't see that. So if that's the case, do we have access to someone who could, does have experience with law, and they can interpret, they can answer questions if this committee brings questions to them for legal interpretation? Would that be town council?
I think the board has indicated in the past that you wanted a consultant. Now, this assumes that there's funding available, which there is. I think you indicated that you wanted a special consultant and special counsel experienced in this kind of stuff. So I didn't get specific about who would support the committee, but item 5, procuring a consultant, really is to cover that so that whoever we end up hiring, the committee is going to be involved in writing the RFP to hire those people. So I didn't get specific, but it anticipates that you're going to have somebody who knows something about this assisting the committee, because it's pretty technical stuff.
Right. That's why we would have liked to have a lawyer on board.
Right.
Yeah, I actually reached out to one attorney, but I don't know if no interest or no time. And then there was another attorney, but they're already on another committee.
Yeah.
And there was a conflict there.
I mean, if down the road, maybe an attorney would volunteer their services, could they be added to the committee? Could we
Sure.
add that to make an 8th member?
Yeah, if a lawyer came forward in town that was willing to help, you could
Yeah.
just, amend the charge. That's completely up to you
Okay,
guys.
all right. That's good.
There's one other item that I had in my list. We had talked about last time of getting assistance from department heads. They weren't necessarily on the committee, but I had an item in here that said, work with town department heads and staff as a town manager coordinates for assistance. So this was a committee, we don't want them to be going to the staff, but if they could go to you, if they have specific questions or want a staff member to come to the meeting.
Right, that we kind of thought that they didn't have to go to every single one of them, just if they needed assistance.
We'll add that as a number 7.
Okay, so. I
So we
think
have 7 applicants, correct?
7 applicants. And,
I think since we have 7, I think we should just approve them all.
yeah, I went back and forth, having 7 people being interviewed. One, it would be timely, but I thought the application and the criteria that they put here, if somebody doesn't think a person should be on it, we can address it. Or if somebody thinks that they need to be interviewed, we can set it up for the next meeting. But I was hoping that we could go through this, and if anything jumps out, we can address it. If not, we can appoint them all at once.
I didn't.
I never want to turn a volunteer down.
Absolutely not,
so.
that's how I feel.
The only issue I had is if there was an even number. I would remove one or hold to add another.
Right.
Just
But
to get
there's
an odd
7.
number for voting, but there's 7, so that works out.
Yep.
And now, do we appoint one of them as the chair, so that, well, somebody has to organize it, is my point. Somebody has to organize their first meeting, how the contact sheets, all that, so should we put somebody out of that whole 7 in charge of, stepping up to the plate and doing that? I mean, you need somebody to lead the committee.
Usually what I do for you with new committees is I meet with them, go over their charge, have Bob give them a quick seminar on open meeting law so they don't, because they are a public body governed by it, and then help them through electing a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. So they sort of run the meeting for them procedurally so that they do that, and then hand it over to the chairman.
That's all I'm concerned about, is exactly what was just said.
Yeah, I'll let them kind of figure it out amongst themselves,
Yeah. All right, so.
Okay, and just people at home can't see this paper work, so the 7 people that we have in their applications and their resumes are Stephanie Crimmins, Jack Martin, Tracy Longa, Michael Davison, Robert W. O'Rourke, and Janet Kennedy, and Chris Mitchell. So before we vote on it, is there anyone here from that committee that wanted to either withdraw or say something or be noticed? No? Okay. So do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the so-mentioned several individuals that you just
7,
mentioned
yep.
To the Racino Proposal Review Committee.
Second?
Motion made by Linda, motion seconded by Lorraine. Any further discussion? And I just wanted to give credit a little bit to, and I didn't say this before, but I know as they came in, Tracy Longa spent some time at Plainville. She went down and got the regulations for us, got the reports for us at her cost, and attended the planning board meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you for her for doing that. That was a big help before. She coordinated all that stuff that we had when the Mass Gaming Commission came in, so that was a big help. All right, so motion made, seconded. Further discussion, we have a question from the audience.
Is it still possible?
It's, sure.
Not controversial, it's just
That's good.
Steve Uton, 21 Carmine Ave. For this board, will there be a focus on, or is there a need to have a focus on, say, gambling habits or addictions or any other effects that might come of that, and any focus on the safety of our community, particularly as it applies to our young adults and children in the community? Just a question.
Yeah, that's something that, and I made a point of, because people are saying, what impact is it going to have? It's off of 495 and Route 1, and it's, traffic's not going to affect it. And I said it at the other meetings, I don't think traffic is the big concern, as much as looking at the social radius of things that can happen around a Racino and what can happen in the future to the kids or the communities or the gambling addiction. I think all those social impacts are just as important, if not more, than the traffic impacts. And I know from a Plainville's perspective, they're looking at it from traffic, but they're looking at all those impacts as well. So we have an opportunity to grab those or do our own, depending on the funding and the efforts and the schedule.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you could just say it at the microphone, though.
I called the gambling, name, Janet Kennedy. I called the gambling commissioner and I got all their laws and I outlined everything. They have a lot of mostly the state police are the ones that are in charge of things down there. And they have everything considering people can't use their EBT cards. They have all these seminars and things like that. It's all in this report anybody can get. You just call the gambling commission.
Excellent. That's going to be helpful for the
Yeah,
committee,
I mean,
for sure.
because that's what I did. I went through it, and it tells you exactly what they're going to do.
Welcome to the committee. Thanks, Janet.
have more paper than that.
No,
Still under discussion? Yep.
well, the only thing I'm saying is, so we need to set up a time for them to meet with Kevin.
I think we just appointed Kevin, if you
Kevin
can meet with
handled
them.
it?
Yeah.
We'll send out an email and figure out when everybody can do it.
That's
Probably be an
right.
evening meeting, I'm going to guess, and or Saturday, one or the other. And then, once we get a date, everybody can do it, we'll get them together. And we're going to move quick on this because the Racing Commission is accepting applications right now for funding, for neighboring community funding. So we want to get our oar in the water real quick.
Yeah, and there's also presentations scheduled this week over in Plainville, so. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor of appointing the 7 people?
Who seconded that motion? Just, did anybody?
Yeah, Lorraine
I did.
seconded.
Lorraine.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
So motion carries 5-0, and thank you to get 7 volunteers these days is a feat in itself, so thank you all for doing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Is it me, or am I within a minute of this schedule
Don't,
on every item?
please not, because you're just going to break out.
You gonna blow it up now?
Okay, the fiscal year 14 operating, did we miss something?
No?
Okay. We've got the operating budget for 14 in the annual town meeting warrant review.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to, there's a pile of paper here, and I apologize, but this is just a huge amount of work that had to happen in a very, very short amount of time. So a lot was sent to you electronically. I imagine your head is spinning from all that paper. So there's 3 separate handouts. I'm going to hand them out one at a time and tell you what they are. It won't take a lot of time, but I think it'll make sense. The first one you have looks like this, okay? And I'll just invite you to look at this first page. I'll go down here to this bottom line. That's the thing to look at. Now, from the original budget that you saw back in December, which is this big binder, you've all got one in the binder, there have been a whole bunch of changes. And over there in that column is what they all are. Now, I'm not going to go through them all, but I'll be happy to answer questions, because it'll take a long time to walk through all of these. But these are all changes in either the revenue side of the picture or reductions in the budget. The starting point in that budget, as you recall, was about $800,000 more than the available revenue we have. And as of tonight, it's $464,000 less than the available revenue we have, which is great news, because what that does is it puts Foxborough in kind of rarefied company. There's less than 20 towns in the state that are in the position where they are able to balance their budget without having to necessarily levy the entire tax levy that the law, Prop 2.5, lets us levy. Now, as an exercise, apart from this, once you vote your budget, and however you may amend that tonight, because this budget is predicated on the one I've given you, the town manager's proposed budget. Now, you take that budget and you do whatever you want with it. The AdCom takes that budget, they do what they want with it. So the budget that's in here is the town manager's proposed budget, and that's $464,000 positively balanced. Randy and I are quite confident that that positive will get even bigger, but there's more events to happen over the next 2 months. About 90% of the moving parts are now in place. There's just a few more things that are going to happen. and we're pretty confident those are going to make the surplus look even better. Once you vote your recommendation, whatever changes you make to the budget I proposed, then we alter this to reflect what you vote. AdCom does the same, and we reflect this, we change this to reflect what they vote. If there are any differences between you, what I do is I report those to you and try to get those worked out prior to town meeting. The hope being that when we go into town meeting, the town manager recommended budget, Board of Selectmen recommended budget, Advisory Committee recommended budget are all identical. That's the hope, and we've been able to achieve that in most years. So that's the first sheet that I wanted to hand out to you and give you what I hope is some very welcome news. The second sheet is the capital budget, the first 2 pages, and the entire detailed operating budget. Now, I don't know if you already have that. That one looks like this. You don't? Okay. Let me hand that around.
Appendix A, is that what you gave out?
Now, let me just give you this now. Well, you've got part of it there, yeah. Well, no, actually, you got the whole thing. Nope, you got it.
I didn't.
Yep, you've got it.
You don't, I have this?
Okay, we'll hand those around.
Sorry, James, I have one.
Now, what you have there is the 2 pages of the capital budget, which is Article 5 in the warrant, and the many pages, which are the, does anybody have an extra one? Or there's supposed to be one extra one for Fred? Okay. That's a different one. I'm actually going to give Frank that one, if that's okay, because you won't need it for the minutes. Thanks. Big old thank you.
That's okay with Diane. Is that okay with you, Diane? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Diane.
So, the first 2 pages is the capital budget, and all the rest of the pages are the operating budget. Now, that's the town manager's proposed operating budget with all the changes in it, which are reflected in this newest version of the revenue expense forecast I just gave you. There is one change that I want to make to that town manager proposed budget, and that is to add $10,000 to the Board of Health budget. Unfortunately, that came out of a meeting held just last night, and so I couldn't get word to you any faster. But we had a meeting, the Board of Health, myself, representatives of the Craft Organization, Health Director and Health Agent, and what we did is we went through the inspections for the stadium and the fees that are charged. What we found was that the fees are likely too high and need to be adjusted fairly substantially. But secondly, part of the reason that we can't get all the inspections done up there and the fees are therefore too high is because, unlike a restaurant, which is open 365 days a year, or maybe a few less, maybe they're closed Monday, but they're open all the time, you can go in and you can inspect a restaurant pretty much any time. But with the stadium, you can only inspect it when there's an actual game or event happening, which is a very few number of days. There are, however, 157 different food-serving venues that have to be inspected, and the law requires, and the Board of Health insists, that each of those be inspected twice a year. Now, with only the one inspector and 157 things to be inspected and limited hours of operation, we can't get it done. There's no way he can physically do it. If he was there every single minute they were open, he couldn't accomplish it. So what we agreed mutually last night was that we would put $10,000 in the budget to hire a second inspector. So there'd be, that $10,000 is not for a full-time employee. It'd probably be a contract employee or a part-time employee who will go with the other Board of Health inspector, and these 2 people should be sufficient to be able to get all the inspections done, 157 times 2, during the time that the stadium is open for events. We will then figure out what that cost is going to be, and we will adjust the fee to the stadium. So think of it this way. whatever the cost is to the town, it's going to be offset 100%, dollar for dollar by the stadium. They're going to pay a fee equal to that inspection. So it's not really costing us anything, because we're going to collect exactly as much in revenue as it cost us. So that just happened last night. And so I wasn't able to get, any word of that to you before tonight or to the AdCom. We'll be explaining that to them next Wednesday night. So I'm proposing a $10,000 addition. Now, we have to do this on kind of a crude basis. The actual cost might be $5,000, it might be $7,000. We're not sure for that inspector. We're going to do it for a year, this year. And then we're going to record the hours, and if there's any surplus, it'll be turned back into free cash. Any surplus, in other words, any difference between $10,000 and what we actually need will come back to the bottom line. So we're just going to have to experiment a little bit over the course of the next football revolution, concert, and soccer season, and see how much effort it's going to take, because we can't be exactly sure how many hours are needed. So we're going to do it. We're going to record it, and then we'll be able to adjust it in next year's budget and have a more accurate number.
Thank you. All right.
Kevin, I have a question. So you mentioned fees and $10,000 in the same sentence. Is there a connection in any way?
Is there what, I'm sorry?
A connection in any way?
Yeah. What the law allows us to charge for any departmental fee is an amount equal to the salary of the person conducting the inspection or service, depending what it is, a multiplier for fringe benefits, and we use 40%, and that's something that Randy has calculated on another occasion, and then another 10% for administration, i.e. clerical support, et cetera. Now, that 10% doesn't represent any calculation. That's the amount that the law allows to be added on for administration to detail fees. So rather than invent our own number, we just use the state's number. So in other words, salary plus a 50% multiplier. You take that number and you multiply it times the number of hours that are actually given to the inspection, and that's your fee. Now, you can take that number and you can divide it by 157 devices, or in the case of something like the stadium, you can just negotiate a lump sum payment. And I think what the Board of Health is thinking is a lump sum payment. Now, the fees that we're charging right now, I will tell you, are much higher than that. And so what we've learned is that we're probably being excessive, frankly, with what we're charging right now. So there's going to have to be an adjustment. So we're negotiating through this, and I'm very confident that we will end up being successful, but it's going to take us this entire season to get to where that needs to be. And all the time is going to be recorded and mutually verified. Yep, this is how many times the inspectors are there. This is how much time they spent. They got through all 157 venues times 2, and this is how much time it took.
So the revenue is overstated then for those fees. That will be adjusted in next year's budget, is what you're saying?
It's not going to be they were very gracious, even knowing that they're paying far more than they should be. They said, we'll pay it this year. They're paying $38,500 in inspection fees. The actual number of hours we spent up there was 65. The hourly rate plus the modifier is $85. So 85 times 65 is a lot less than $38,000 by a huge margin. But remember, that 65 hours it was not sufficient to inspect everything times 2. So what we know is that the total cost of the inspections is a lot less than $38,500, but it's more than 85 times 65,
Okay.
and it's somewhere in the middle, and that's to be determined.
Okay.
But they were very gracious, and they said, look, we know you've already set your budget, so we're not going to ask for that back, and we're not going to ask you for any money back from last year or the year before, because those fees have been in place for 3 years. This will be the 3rd year. That was pretty gracious, frankly, of them, and in return, we said we will work hard to make this fee proper going forward, beginning in fiscal 15. So 14 will be the study year, 15 will be the year we implement a new fee structure, And compliments to both the craft organization representatives and to the Board of Health, because it was a very amicable conversation over a couple hours that led to I think, an excellent conclusion.
Thank you.
So, Kevin, you're saying there's 163 establishments?
157.
157, and twice a year. So you're looking at 314.
Exactly.
And you're going to inspect 314 facilities in 65 hours?
No, that's the problem. You can't do it in 65 hours.
But maybe I misunderstood you. You said that's what we did last year. We say we did it in 65 hours. Am I misunderstanding you?
Well, the inspector can only go there
So he didn't get it done?
when it's open. No, he didn't get even close to done, no. No. I don't remember the exact number of facilities he inspected, but it was less than 2 times all those facilities. So what we know is we need more inspections, but he physically can't do them. I mean, it's just so many hours he can devote to this. So we need a second inspector.
All right, can I stop you there only because we've got a $60 million budget in 15 minutes. And I just don't want to get...
on one, yeah.
So you'll work that process? You're going to
Yes.
present it to AdCom?
Yep.
I'm not disagreeing, but I think we're going to move on from that one, a $10,000 item on a $60 million budget. Any other items on the, so the process is, we've got April 2nd, we've got April 16th. When is town meeting? And this has to go out for
May 13th.
13th?
13th. And we've got to sign, what do we need to sign tonight, the
warrant.
the warrant. So
Well-
the numbers will be changing?
Yes, I've got the
between now
warrant for you, too. What you've got in front of you right now is the material for Articles 4 and 5. 4 is the operating budget, 5 is the capital budget. Once you decide what you're going to do with those, then I'm going to give you the third handout, which is the warrant, which is the same one you saw last week. There's been, as I promised you, there's been no substantive changes. In fact, this is almost identical except for typos and corrections, because the one you had last week and the one you're getting tonight don't have the budget or the capital budget in it yet, because you've got to take action, AdCom's got to take action, then we put it in here. It also doesn't have the wording for that easement for the library, because we don't have that yet. So other than those 3 things, this warrant is now complete.
And what about Inventus?
Inventus is in here. The TIF, it's in here.
So any discussion or comments on the latest budget that is going to be represented by, we're going to have a selectmen column that says this is our approved, and the advisory committee is going to have their column, and they hopefully will be the same, but it may be different. It's been different in the past.
Yeah, I have a comment about, and there's 2 different numbers here. Under general government, one sheet says number 127, human resources, and the other sheet says 124, human resources. So which is the number, 124 or 127?
Correct number for human resources is the higher of the 2.
127? Okay, in this one, it says 124. So
Let me check.
it should be 127. Just to make sure we're referring to the
Correct number is 148,930.
No, he's talking about the
I'm talking
department
about
number.
the number.
Oh, the department number is 124.
Okay, on this sheet it says 127, on this sheet it says 124.
124 says
So
it's the
is it
Southeastern
124 or
Regional.
127?
It's 124.
Well,
So one article.
so where's the Southeastern Regional Services Group?
Well, Randy assigns those numbers, so if there's a conflict, he'll correct that when we're editing. I wouldn't worry about department numbers.
Okay. All right, my concern is, I feel very uncomfortable with this. This is under Human Resources. The expenses for $34,675. This was the original figure that was presented to the advisory committee when the budget was first presented. This was the figure that was vetted by the advisory committee with your presentation. Since that time, an item for tuition reimbursement has been withdrawn. if that is the case, that expense figure should be $24,700. And it says $34,675, which is the same amount, which is the original amount.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion, as far as the Board of Selectmen is concerned, to change that $34,675 to $24,700.
I don't recommend you do that, and I have not changed my recommendation for the reasons that, number one, we have a $5,000 training budget. You can't see that because it's in the detailed breakdown. You'd need your book. When we went through this, the board has asked for a couple of training initiatives to be started this year. You asked for succession planning. That's in the formal goals and objectives that you gave me. And we've undertaken a program of trying to get the middle management staff to attend a management level training. It's fairly expensive, and $5,000 would only send about 4 people. So if we're going to continue with the program of trying to get all the middle managers to that, to try to get them ready to become managers, we need more than 5,000, frankly. I also would like to do some customer service training with selected staff, particularly folks in Town Hall, because I think that'd be a great thing to bolster the good strengthful feelings they already have. And then finally, you've asked that we do some sexual abuse awareness training with the staff. And we had a free program from the YMCA, but we're looking at a couple of other programs that we would have to pay for. So $5,000 is an extremely inadequate budget. In addition, at the present time, the HR director has indicated that she's withdrawn her request. I have reminded her that she is legally entitled to that and to changing her mind if and until the town decides to change the bylaw. Now, Board of Selectmen would have to make a decision, the advisory committee would have to make a decision, and then town meeting would have to decide what it wants to do. I'm not going to presuppose what the outcome of that process is going to be. What I do know is that until that process concludes, we have a current bylaw that has current wording, and any employee who has taken the proper steps can take advantage of that. And we can't diminish their right. This is a right of the employee. It's not a privilege. It's a right. So I'm not suggesting that the HR director will be asking for this level of reimbursement, but she may ask for something lesser. And if we don't change the bylaws, I've reported to you before, she'd be entitled. So I want to keep the $9,900 in the budget for those 2 reasons. I don't know which one or what combination of that will fund, but what I will tell you is if she doesn't request tuition reimbursement, and if we don't need $14,000 for training, then whatever we don't use will follow the bottom line. But I'm fairly optimistic that if it all ends up going into training, $14,000 is not a big training budget for 150, 160 employees. That's not a very big training budget.
Well, first of all, Kevin, the tuition reimbursement request was withdrawn. It's even in the minutes. It's in the newspapers. It's in the minutes that it was withdrawn. So if it was withdrawn, that means that money is no longer in that line item. That means it's a zero. It's a zero. And if the request for tuition reimbursement has to be done by December 1st of the preceding year, then if there's a change of mind, I'm sorry that request was not made in time. So
I don't know what's been reported in the paper, Jenny. I don't read the paper.
Well, I can tell you it's in the minutes that we just approved, that it's in there that it was withdrawn. Also, in regard to the...
I have a request and I do not have a withdrawal.
You don't have a withdrawal?
I have a request. I do
in...
not have a written withdrawal.
If you look at the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's meeting that we went over for tonight's meeting, we haven't approved them yet. It's right in the minutes that the request was withdrawn. I would say that the request was withdrawn.
If that is indeed the person who made the request said that, and that is in fact the case, then that $9,900 would be not needed for tuition reimbursement. I would still want it for training.
Well, all right, that's my second point. When you made the presentation to the advisory committee, you had set the training at $5,000. When you met with the liaison from the advisory committee, you were advised that if the $5,000 was not enough, then you could always come back to the advisory committee at a later date for a transfer of funds, showing, having shown that you need the money and all that stuff. So if you feel that the $5,000 is not enough, you still have a vehicle to get the proper funding at a later time. So that's why I think that the expense line should be $24,700. And that's my motion. I would like to make that motion to the Board of Selectmen to make that expense line $24,700.
Kevin, this is the information thank you, Ginny, that we just got tonight. Are you looking for us to vote on this entire budget tonight to meet your schedule and deadline, or could we take this look at it and come back on April 2nd?
Here's what you could do. This needs to get to the printer very, very soon in order to make the posting guideline 14 days prior to the town meeting, not including the date of the posting, et cetera. I'm sorry, 30 days for an annual, I think it is, 14 for a special. I'll have to check that, but it's got to go soon, that's for sure. Now, can you wait till April 2nd? Yes, you could. I know right now Sandra is probably watching this meeting and is not happy with me because it makes our life in the office very, very complicated to go that late. But if the board...
For the printing of it, or the
Well,
the
for two
deadline.
things. A, the reporting to the advisory committee of what you've done, because they traditionally, they don't have to, but they traditionally like to know what you want to do before they react. They don't have to do that. They can go first. But if they want to wait till the board reacts, then they would be really required to do it the next night, April 3rd, because after that, if we waited another week, we can't possibly get it printed in the warrant. So right now, we don't know, if the only thing that the board, well, I don't want to ask you that, because there may be other things that other board members are
Can I ask,
concerned about.
I see, Larry, you're chairman of the advisory committee. What's your schedule and thought on when are you looking to wrap your stuff up?
Well, so I did two things today. I talked to Frank Spillane, and he really couldn't understand what the rush was around getting this, getting the warrant out. I think the date you or Sandra gave me was March 31st. And Frank said, typically it wasn't until the middle of April that, when he was on the AdCom.
That you printed the warrant?
Yeah. So if you look at the town bylaws, that was the second thing I did today, I believe it says that it needs to be posted in the town hall and at the meeting place 7 days before the annual town meeting.
Massachusetts general law has a different requirement, which is either 14 or 30, and I'd have to check. But
Okay, but
whichever it is, doesn't include the date of the posting or the date of the meeting, which is effectively 16 or 32, and I forget which one it is.
But even given that, I don't understand why it takes so long to print what is, after all, a fairly, pedestrian document, right? I guess you could go to Staples, right, and have someone run off 500 copies.
It's not
of
that.
it.
It's also the advertising in the paper that's required. Off the top of my head, I don't remember all the different steps. I do know that you adopted a calendar that had a date well prior to April for you to all take action on the budget. And so we've planned all the events sequentially in anticipation of that calendar. Now,
That shouldn't force us to not spend the time that we need to here. Clearly, we're still making changes to the budget, and we're being told that we're a week away from having to vote on it, and I'm not really sure why that is when we're 7 weeks from town meeting.
again, Larry,
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, and I
Okay, that's fine,
apologize, I don't
that's
know.
fine. But I think it's something the board should
I
discuss.
wasn't prepared for that tonight.
Yep.
because you folks adopted a schedule, I didn't.
Mhm.
And that schedule calls for you to take action on this budget no later than next week. So we have organized our affairs around the anticipation that you would do that. Now, if you're asking me, can I re-examine that and find out if we can build in some more time?
I think that's a good way to put it.
I'm happy to do that.
Yes, that's a
Sure.
good way to put it, absolutely.
So you're meeting today, Tuesday, you're meeting tomorrow? and
We're
then you're gonna
meeting
be meeting on
every
the
Wed-
3rd,
every Wednesday. Yep.
Um,
So I just think it's worthwhile to take a look and see if there's some give in the schedule here, so that everyone can take the time that they need, not just us, but,
Yeah.
you folks obviously have questions also.
Yep.
that-
Do we have time to
Thank
do
you.
a joint meeting with the AdCom or no?
To achieve what?
So that we are on the same page?
I mean, we haven't done it in the past.
Okay.
We've done it in the off-season, kind of on the bigger picture. But to go through the budget,
Breaking news. So my attorney, Mr. Siegel, has just pointed out to me that the state statute says 7 days. So that's
For the annual?
for the annual.
14 for a special.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. So, thank you.
yeah. But I also want to remind, what Kevin said is true. He's meeting a schedule that the advisory committee set up with the selectmen, so he's just doing what he's told on the schedule. So if we can expand it, because it's not quite where we need to be,
Yep.
that's what we can do. Your thoughts on having a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen, Linda's suggestion, and the Selectmen
I
and
think
the
that's
AdCom?
I think that's a wonderful idea. Absolutely. Yep, and we could do that at your convenience. Yeah, we're meeting every week, so. And we've now covered all the warrant articles, and we voted on probably almost half of them. So, we really want to spend some time on the budget now, so, now that it seems to have firmed up.
I think there's some positive, but I'm wondering if that's going to put a wrench in this whole process at the 11th hour, to put the two groups together and start dissecting it, where we should have been and have been doing it all along. And I understand what you're saying, Linda, but
But
it would be tomorrow.
I don't ever remember a column on the warrant for, selectmen recommended versus, is that the way it's always been?
I think it's always been
It's
that way.
always been, yeah. I think one year we talked about whose budget is it, and we were going to get rid of one. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, and
Yeah.
we decided to keep them separate. And it's nice when everyone's in harmony, but, you pick up things on the AdCom that we don't, and vice versa. Jenny has something that is, she's passionate about, and we may go in a different direction, that you guys might be passionate about something else. But at the end of the day, at the town meeting, what's held up, and I'm talking out loud, maybe I shouldn't, but what are they voting on, yours, ours, or theirs?
The motion will be our recommendation, in which case, then I believe what you would have to do is get up, if you wanted to put your number forward, would be to amend the motion that we make.
So we would
You'd
hold,
put a
we would
hold-
hold on that one
Exactly.
item and then go back, yeah.
Yep. And we can never go up, obviously.
Yeah.
Nobody can go up.
Gotcha, okay.
It's always been AdComs, that's what we rely on, is this, basically the subcommittee, the Board of Selectmen, in a way. We always rely on them heavily to dissect the budget. We can't do everything, they can't do everything, but that's what I really rely on. When they get into the budget, I pretty much 99% of the times go with their recommendations. So, I weigh heavily on their decision on what they do, so.
I think what I'm concerned about is, there's a 2-inch binder and plus 10 pages of line items. If we get together, we're looking at the big picture, or we're going to start dissecting 10,000 here, 10,000 there, and I think that would just give me a headache at the 11th hour. Are we looking to look at the big picture? I think that helps, and that's what we did a couple of years ago in the summer on a Saturday. But to sit with them while they're trying to do their warrant article, codifying everything plus this, and then have a big 14 people plus 5.
One other note, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reassure the board, the budget is proposed by the town manager, but it really the budget that goes to town meeting is your budget and the AdCom's budget. It's not my budget. My job is to get it all pulled together, make Randy and I make sure it balances. By the way, Randy's away at the Town Accountant Certification School this week, couldn't be with us tonight, but he did an enormous amount of work Friday and all day Saturday to get all this done, so I wanted to be sure that you knew that. The thing I want to say to the board is, any changes that you want to make to this, I only ask you for the privilege of saying to you why I think it's a good or a bad idea. Once I've said that, I'm going to shut up.
Okay.
Because whether you do Ginny's change, or some of you, other board members may have changes, it's your budget. So once you allow me the privilege of telling you why I propose this, then I'm going to be quiet, and then you vote whatever it is you want to propose. What I will tell you is, frankly, whatever you vote, I'll make it work. I mean, we'll make it work.
So, it's not my decision, it's the board's decision. We can either vote on this tonight, we can put it off till April 2nd, we can have a joint meeting, we can go through line item by line item tonight and ask questions while Kevin's here. If he doesn't know, he can bring it back to Randy when he returns.
Can we
What do you wanna
just
do?
have time to look it over other than just getting it,
Yeah.
just doing it tonight, and maybe highlight what our questions are and send them to you, and you, Randy, can, make your facts known on April 2nd?
Sure.
It's
Give me a
al-
call.
yeah, It's
Sure.
always nice to have Randy here too, because he
Yeah.
is,
Should we have another meeting, like a special one for that, next week? I'm wondering, just because.
Right
of the
now,
crunch.
I know I'm going to regret saying this, right now, you're pretty light on April 2nd in terms of agenda items. I don't know how it happened. I
Well,
don't, but
we're
bad.
not light because we've got your
contract.
contract, your
The evaluation.
self-evaluation, and do want to spend some time on our stuff that we're putting together.
And we have
I don't
the
have
executive
that.
session for
Executive
an
session.
update on student case.
But we'll, 15 minutes tonight was not, with this stuff coming up, it wasn't appropriate to go through all this. Plus, we still have the warrant numbers to go through. So let's put this on.
So you don't want to consider my motion right now?
Oh, I'm sorry, you did make a motion. Motion was made by Ginny to reduce the $34,675 expense item under Human Resources down to $24,700. The motion made, seconded,
Second with discussion.
discussion.
I definitely, understand the motion. What I'm wondering is if we should talk about having some number in between the full reduction of the 9,000, just to accommodate what we are talking about, some different programs here. The sexual abuse awareness training is something that I would imagine would cost a decent chunk of change, so if we could still allocate some money for that type of program.
Well, I mean, according to the advisory committee liaison, if down the road, because you're not going to spend this $5,000 the week after the fiscal year begins. Down the road, if more money is needed for training, you can always go to the advisory committee for a transfer, showing the need for it and where the money is going.
Look, let me make it easier for you. The town manager under statute has very broad authority to overspend any of these budgets, so I can do that. I mean, I do it, at the end of the year, you're going to see, you get it as a courtesy, you don't vote on it, but you get it as a courtesy, dozens of lines that I will overexpend. And the reason for that is because as we do a budget in May, having started it in October, for a time period which won't end till almost 2 years later, we can't hit this thing 100% accurate. It's impossible. So we're going to have certain lines that are going to go over what we budgeted. We're going to have a lot of other lines that are going to be well under. And so the law gives me the authority to move them. I report that to the advisory committee. The first thing we do is we take their reserve fund off the top and we use that to plug gaps. And then if there's any remaining gaps, then we transfer from surplus to negatives. So if we get into the year and, it takes $11,000 to do a proper training budget and achieve those objectives, and I've only got 5, I'll spend the 11 and I'll move it from somewhere else. I don't go to them because they don't want me to. Each time I'm going to overexpend and say, I'm about to run over in this line, because it would take way too much time. There's thousands of lines in this budget. So we just have an agreement. I'll report at the end of the year, and they say, they review them. So I just wanted to reassure the board of that, that we're not really bound by this. What you try to do is, if you know an expense is coming reasonably, you don't deliberately under-budget it, knowing you're going to run over. I guess what I'm telling the board is that I'm pretty sure that 5,000 is not adequate to meet all those training goals. So if it's your pleasure to make it 5, that's fine, and I'll do my best to live with it, but I doubt I can. So I'm just asking to make it a more realistic number, because I don't think 5 is going to do what you want to accomplish. These are your goals that you've given to me, and I don't think I can do them for $5,000. It's
Well,
100.
Kevin, if you feel that you could not do it for $5,000 for the training, then why did you put in $5,000? Why didn't you put in more?
To be candid with you, because the HR director had just arrived and was handed this and said, write a budget. And she said, gee, I'm brand new. I'll do my best.
Well, you know what, then this is a training exercise.
finish.
And then.
Could I finish,
next
please?
And then next year, she will be more aware of the training, and then she can make an appropriate request.
All right, so a motion was made, seconded for the discussion.
James, page 6 of the minutes from March, February 26th. Could the clerk read that? Want it? Do you have it? I just want
I'll read it here. Under personal wage bylaw, she was told that this was for a master's course that was not required by the town or to continue in employment, even though the request has since been pulled. Mrs. Coppola would like Article 2 change in the personnel wage law.
to, so it says in that the request was pulled. Who made the statement?
Mr. Pena.
Excuse me?
Mr. Pena. She said that it was pulled.
And now we get, that's was, I don't know if it's the appropriate time to talk about that when we're talking about a budget.
No, let's do this.
The line, my argument is, the line item was pulled. The line item is now 0 for that tuition reimbursement. It is 0 now because the request was pulled. The tuition, the training number, as presented to the advisory committee, and as the advisory committee vetted it and asked questions about the training, that was set at $5,000. So that says to me that the expenses right now should read $24,700, reduced from a pulled tuition request. And if
The committee hasn't set any numbers.
Excuse me?
The advisory committee hasn't set any numbers. They haven't voted anything.
I didn't say, I said it was presented to them. You presented the budget to them. You
Yes.
presented the budget with the training, and the line item for training was $5,000, blah, 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 blah. And then also at the bottom, it was the tuition reimbursement for $9,975, which was pulled. So that makes that line 0.
Mr. Chairman,
The
let me make this
$5,000
easy.
remains.
Just cut the budget 10,000. This is going to go on, and as you say correctly, this is a $60 million budget. You want to cut 10 grand, cut it, please. Let's just be done
I
with
just
it.
make the motion to make the
Pass the
expenses
motion,
at
Mr. Chairman.
$24,700.
So we can put this to rest.
Motion
I'll make it
made,
work.
was seconded to reduce that specific item by $10,000. Further discussion?
We don't have to reduce it $10,000, just do it by the $9,975.
I rounded up, $9,975.
I mean, because it goes along with the amount of money request that was pulled.
Motion made, it was seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? The reason I'm opposing is because we're not voting on the entire budget tonight.
Well, that's,
I realize that.
I mean, that was my question too, is, I'm going to have questions, and we're probably going to amend it, so,
That's-
why don't we do, we can probably do it like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
so
my
this
point
is
was
the
I don't
first
disagree,
amendment that we'll do.
But we're going to come back with items, each of us are going to come back with items. There may be
And
a $100,000
questions.
item, I
Yeah.
don't know, but I don't want to sit here tonight and say this is the most important thing.
No.
I'm not saying I disagree. If money was allocated for one specific and it's withdrawn and it's going to get moved over, it's an issue with me, but not tonight. It's going to be on April 2nd. That's my point. All right, motion carries 4-1 to remove that item.
So what are we gonna
See-
do? We're just gonna send you our questions and then meet?
Yeah.
We're going to vote on this on April 2nd.
Probably the most
April 2nd, or
efficient
do you wanna
thing
do a-
is if any of you have questions on budget, call me or send me an email.
Frank,
All right.
keep that for
Do
you.
not
Write it up.
include all the board,
I get on
okay? Just, everybody be sure of that, just me. And then I'll answer one-on-one.
Next week.
And then once you have your concern addressed one way or the other, then you need to bring that to the entire
Okay.
board at the meeting.
So, for example, I had questions about the merit increase program, which I had discussions with you and
Yep.
with Randy about, so I have that information, so I wait till,
You can do it tonight if you want to talk about
Okay.
it. If not, then we'll do it on April 2nd.
I just had some questions about how exactly the program would work, because this is a new program, and, you know, in the private sector, when you have a merit program, you often don't have other things like COLAs and things like that. So I talked to Kevin, but also talked to Randy, and I understand how the program works. I think the key component that's missing is actually the evaluation tools, because what we're doing is we're budgeting on a good estimate the potential number of employees who might qualify. So all the non-union employees, for example, they have their new steps with the much narrower step in between. The progress along that step will be related to their performance, so someone who meets standards potentially would go to the next step. Someone who does not, potentially does not go to the next step. And someone who walks on water could potentially go to the next step and qualify for a certain amount of merit. And the way it's been the way it's been budgeted, it comes out on average, the potential is a 1.25 merit opportunity, when you put it across all the employees, the expense, basically. But only certain people will qualify. So I was just trying to determine the reasonableness of it when you come from an environment that you either have merit or you have something
Typically,
else.
in the private sector,
So-
management typically gets their increase annually, if any, based on merit. Government doesn't tend to do that well. So
Right.
what we tend to do is something that's sort of hybrid.
Right.
We take the entire pay plan and increase it by some COLA. That means every single number on the plan goes up by some number. This year, you've set 2%.
Some years we've had zero, though.
Well, in the last 3 years, it's been 0, 3, and 2. Right, 0, 3, 2. So, actually, this year, I think it's 1-1 for next year, if I'm correct now. And it's not 2, it's 1-1. So it's been an average 1.5% increase over the 3-year period. Now, the merit system that is still in design is going to basically say if an employee is an exceptional achiever, they can get one step, 2.5%. If they're basically doing the job, they just get the COLA. And if they're below, they get put into a probationary period of some sort. That plan is about 85% done, but it's not done yet. The forms and everything are still being reviewed. We're going to work on it tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I'm hoping to have it ready to present to you sometime. It's not going to be the next meeting because there's not going to be enough agenda time, but the one after that, I'm hoping to have it ready to present. So we'll have it in place well before July 1. It doesn't go into effect till July 1. So we'll have it for you long before then.
Well, I just wanted to report that I was satisfied with the information I'd gotten. It struck me as reasonable once I understood better how it was working, so, and what the actual impact is of that. Because, at
That's all
first I
in-
was thinking, are 50% of the employees going to get a 3% increase on top of a COLA? To me, that seemed out of whack with how things work these days.
We
But
don't
it's-
know yet who's going to get it.
Right.
Who will qualify and who won't. We don't have any way to know that, because that's not going to happen until July and August based on current year.
Right, and,
I
you
can
know,
only
it's-
estimate the financial impact and basically put a chunk of money in, and then we've got to fit whatever we
Because-
do, we've got to fit it to that chunk of money.
Typically, the way a department head would build their budget is they would look at their employees and knowing, having a performance
A sense
tool
of how they're going to do.
in
Yeah.
front of them,
Yep.
they would be able to budget correctly. But we're guessing the first year, work out the,
Yeah, and that's the subject matter of Article 6, which Randy and I haven't even gotten that one figured out yet. We got to get this operating budget first, get everything, wages, salaries, all that set. Then the next step will be to take 6 and get that one done. And of course, we needed to get CIP done. That was Friday afternoon. So it's all happening in the normal way. It all happens at the last minute in a giant, huge rush.
Okay.
Which, by the way, Mr. Chairman, you've got the CIP article
Yep.
as well. I'm assuming the board would like to have some time to review that and look at that the next time, too. Okay, great.
Yep.
This is just the latest copy of the warrant with the
Let
date up on the top.
me stop you there for a second, because this started on time. What's pushed back is, and I see some volunteers from the Conservation Commission, so I wanted to respect their time a little bit, because it's 8:55, so we're well past it now because of this first
Yeah, I
item.
told you should have never mentioned it,
You know?
that you were doing
So
such a great job.
let's hold off on the
Jinx
the
yourself.
warrant article, we'll jump on that, but the Oak Street property legal opinion, I'm assuming that, you three are here for that? So this particular item, we put this on, I get a lot of calls today on why this is here. Are we doing it? Are we informing? From my understanding, there were a member or members of the, I want to say Permanent Building Committee or Asset Review Committee that wanted to get a second opinion of whether or not we can sell Lincoln Hill. We don't have authority over the Asset Review Committee, but we have authority over our expenditures when it comes to legal counsel. So Kevin suggested putting this on the agenda tonight.
Didn't we get
to hear
an
that.
opinion?
We got one opinion, but there's
Yeah.
people looking for a second opinion.
can I explain a little bit?
Sure.
Just, the Town Asset Review Committee, we have been looking at a number of properties to bring up for sale, and one of the properties, obviously, is the Oak Street property, the 5 Form A lots. I know there's been a great amount of discussion with the Conservation Commission about the topic. We did get that one opinion, and, where for the Town Asset Review Committee, the properties that have been identified represent, the potential sale represents a significant amount of dollars to the taxpayers. Like these lots, for example, could have represented potentially $500,000 to $750,000 that would not need to be borrowed in the future against a large capital project. It seemed the idea of spending a couple of $100s more to obtain an opinion from an environmental type of attorney to look at this situation would be beneficial, just to confirm either the original opinion or see is there any other potential approach that could be considered by, the town and Concom regarding the ability to recognize any additional monies. Because, again, I think, the charge of the Town Asset Review Committee is to identify properties that can potentially not only come back on the tax rolls, but also represent a source of capital funding for projects. And I think, we've got the town hall coming at us, we've got the borough school coming at us. All of these are situations that we are going to have to deal with. So I just thought that for some more money, it made sense just to ultimately put any potential to rest in that area. It just represented too much of it represents too much of what we had as a target for assets to bring back onto the tax rolls, and also potential assets for building projects. So that's really the rationale for requesting the second opinion.
You're speaking from a member of the asset review?
Yes.
And they share that? That's the majority that's come back?
They have recommended the sale of these properties. We haven't had a meeting to take a vote requesting a second opinion, but they have supported the sale of this property all along.
I know, but then there was a letter from the attorney that said it's not saleable in so many words. Did that go back to your committee?
Yes.
And did they say come back here and ask for a second opinion?
As a committee, no. As a committee, no.
Did any?
I spoke to one member of the committee.
And how many people? Is it 5?
There's 5.
5. All right.
I mean, I think you did a great job when you gave us that presentation, but there was also the, I'm gonna get it wrong, but there was a salamander situation there.
Oh, yeah.
As well as other things, and I think when we look at it, you know, we can always use more money, of course, but this land that belongs to the town also is run by the conservation, correct? And/or recreation. I think recreation gave it over to Concom. Is that?
The town meeting vote was a little nebulous, as the article said, but it provided that the land would be purchased for recreation and conservation use.
Right.
Presumably, the camp would be the recreation portion, logically.
Yeah.
And, but there wasn't any more specificity than that in the motion.
And now we have the spotted salamander as part of
Well,
that situation.
here's the dilemma, and I'm certainly sympathetic to what Lorraine said, being the town manager and occupying this building and trying to lead the employees in a difficult situation. I would like to see that, the land sold, the money accrue to the town, and use it as part of the funding plan for the town hall as was anticipated. The dilemma at this point is that with the discovery of an endangered species on the land, the Massachusetts Heritage Program is now engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And the Heritage Program, while it cannot block development, it can have a powerful influence on how development occurs. So what the town would have to do, were you to receive a second opinion saying you could sell the land, and of course now you'd have one that says you can't, you'd have one that says you can, now you're going to probably have to get a third one.
And you know what, Kevin? I can
So-
stop you right there, because history, we don't need history to
I know,
repeat itself.
But let me
here
finish.
in this-
I understand. but let me
You do
finish.
understand?
Let me give you, yes, I do.
Okay,
eloquently,
good.
trust me. But let me give you another reason why I don't think you want to do it. That's reason number one,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going down a road that I think a lot
We've
of
been
people
down
are
before.
concerned about.
Yep.
Yes. Second point, if somehow you got permission to sell this land, however that were to occur, I think it's abundantly clear that would have to go to a town meeting for a revote. I have no confidence in how that would turn out. Third point, you would have to disclose as part of the sale to any potential buyer that you now have a state-listed species in close proximity to the land. And in order to develop that land, you're going to have to do the kinds of studies that the Heritage Program is going to require. Again, they don't have the power to block the sale or the development, but they do have the power to require a great deal of work to be done in order that the ultimate development be sensitive to that endangered species. Having a good deal of experience with that law, I can pretty well tell you that it's unlikely that anyone will buy one or two singular building lots knowing they're headed for that requirement. If this were a big piece of land, 20, 30 acres with multiple lots, and a developer could lay off the cost of those studies on a small number of lots against the whole subdivision, they'd do it. But in this case, you're talking about only one or two lots, best case scenario that you could sell, and you'd have this tremendous requirement. So a developer who's going to buy 1 or 2 lots and they know they're headed for that, or a homeowner who's going to buy it, it's going to put an impossible impediment on it, which would make it very hard to sell. I'm not happy about the situation, but on the other hand, I'm not doing my job if I don't tell you all this, frankly. And for that reason, I don't, I told the commission. I went to the commission 2 weeks ago, Bob, and I put this issue in front of them. I suggested they consider some options. They made their choice, and I told them that I would support them when they made their choice. So I support their choice, which is to proceed with the protection of this land, consistent with the town meeting vote, and the possibility, and I hope it will happen, that the Recreation Department will work with the Scouts and see if they can resurrect the camp and turn it back into what I think the town meeting wanted to see happen back in many, many years ago when they bought this land. If that happens, i.e. the camp is reestablished and the backland is protected, then I think we have acted consistent with the will of the voters when they bought this land way back then. And I think that's probably the best disposition we can make at this point. And again, believe me, part of me is pained making this recommendation to you, because that's a lot of money that we're foregoing that
But there was a lot of things that Lorraine presented to us that is very, that is revenue could come in too, that they want to look at.
Yes, there are other options we're looking at, yeah.
I really think your group did a great job.
The fire
I just think that,
station.
Lorraine, you know what I'm talking, you don't want to put your group against another group or this group against another group. We don't want to do that.
No, but
And I think
where there
maybe you
was so
should just
much-
talk to your other members and
Yeah,
and
I mean,
ask
where there
them,
was
but-
so much money at stake, really, for taxpayers, I thought that investing just a couple $100 more to have an environmental expert review it would
And if you get the
basically-
answer, like I said, like Kevin just said, if you get the answer that says, you know what, yeah, we can fight this and we can, remove this salamander or whatever he says, again, it is, Lorraine, it's putting one against the other, and it's just not what we want to see in this town anymore.
What I think
know.
really is the focus, at least, as we've talked about it, has always been to see if there was some aspect of compromise. And if there was a way to have conservation satisfied and still be able to realize some positive aspect of it for the taxpayers, that's, I guess that's why I'm looking at the second opinion as, is the door to compromise really totally shut?
Well, that's where I thought we were going with this when the town manager told us 6 weeks ago that he was going to try and reach a compromise with the Conservation Commission. And Linda's right, your second opinion is only going to light the fuse, and then the fuse is going to travel, and then eventually it's going to ignite. But I thought we were looking at a compromise. That's what you said multiple meetings ago. Have you had any discussions with Conservation
Well, we
on
did. We talked-
swapping front for back? Is there anything going there? Because I'll tell you,
talked
I will not. I'm not going to see another camp redeveloped like Camp St. Augustine's was, and then grabbed from the people that put it back together, and then put it back on the it went from being a volunteer citizens group, which the town bought it for. They ran it for 12 years? It was over a decade, and then it was taken from them. And I don't think you can get any other group in this town to go up to Oak Street on that side of town and go through that whole process, Scouts or anybody, and when it's the Scouts, it's leaning on the rest of the people in town because they need guidance and help and permits and all that other stuff and architectural drawings, whatever, to
That's not even the real problem, Mark.
But I'm saying that's not going to happen, is my point. No, the Scouts taking over that property and rebuilding those buildings. If they were looking at
We've done it once. The J.C.'s did it once.
Right.
Brought it up, those buildings up to code, the whole kit and caboodle.
Right. How many years ago, Linda?
Right, that's all I'm saying, is it can be done, because it was done, but
I wouldn't.
for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about, though, Mark. I'm
Right.
not talking about the use of it right now. The use is very limited because we have a visitor. you know, we have a
Well, as
little,
far as,
you know,
yeah.
that has made it home. And, you know, we've gotten the opinion that it's not, you know, we can't sell it. And if we do sell it, like Kevin said, who's going to buy it that's like, I
And
don't
the-
want to disturb you?
And the money was given to, it was a federal grant to purchase the property, which is a whole,
Bought it.
the town bought it? I thought there was a federal grant.
There was 75,000 community development block grant funding used, as long as, in a prior life, I was a CDBG grant administrator, as long as
It's
you
used.
retain value in the remainder of the land that you keep, equal to at least 75, you don't have to remit anything back. In addition, they've never asked for anything back, despite it's in the regulation. So you're okay there, but I think forget about that. There's a lot of other reasons why I think selling this land is a practical impossibility, because there's so many hurdles. The town meeting vote, the endangered species situation. I think it's far more intelligent for us to put our energy into other land, which is available for sale, and is in fact another piece of land, which I spoke to the Conservation Commission about at a different location, and I'm hoping that they would be in a mood to compromise on that one, because that has some excellent value, and perhaps that becomes the nature of the compromise, not the land on Oak Street, because I just don't think that's going to work. Even if the commission, by the way, were to say, okay, let's sell a lot or two, once the discovery of the endangered species is made, the commission doesn't control that anymore.
There's nothing
It
they
goes to
can
the
do.
Heritage Program.
That's right.
They control it. And believe me, they are extremely protective of those habitats, because they are rare, and they should be. So it's just an uphill battle to try to sell that land, and the tremendous amount of energy that it would take, and no guarantee of success, we can put our energy elsewhere, and we can have a much better outcome, I think.
I'll close it. I agree with everything, probably by 10, with 10 additional reasons why it shouldn't be sold, and it won't get there. What troubles me is the Conservation Commission made a vote, and for it to get to town meeting, even in the recommendation of the attorney, that, you know, they had to want it to do this. I mean, zoning is a wonderful thing, and if the town meeting says A, and 20 years later, the town meeting wants to say B, they can revote it, and things change. But specifically, it has to get through the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission said, no, they don't want to do it, and they raised their hand, and more than a majority voted. You're on a committee. You only talked to one other person. What if the selectmen tonight said, yeah, we want to get a second opinion, and then we start spending money? All of a sudden, the selectmen, once again, are pitted against another organization that they said they didn't want to do it, and we overrode that with a vote because we have the money to spend on an attorney, and then you get two opinions, and then you get a third. We don't have a committee in here saying, I'm the Asset Review Committee, by majority, can you do this? We have one person coming in asking us. We just spent a considerable amount of time. It's already been in the Globe that's starting to say, there was an article that almost alluded to the fact that the Conservation Commission is costing us money because we can't cash in because they don't want us to do it. I see it going down in that direction. I witnessed it off of the table from the dog park issue when an attorney made a recommendation. And I'll tell you right now, if the board voted to get a second opinion, I could give you 5 attorneys that could give you a second opinion that says we can sell it. That's what they do. We're going down the exact same road that the selectman is trying to circumvent somebody else's opinion, and I don't see any good coming out of it from one member of a committee coming to us and saying, can you do this? If the Asset Review Committee wanted to come make a vote and say, can you do it, I think I would have a little more respect for that process. And that's why, when this is on the agenda, I don't know if it was Lorraine Brew as a selectman, Kevin putting it on here, someone from the Asset Review Committee, but we're going down a terrible path that says one board is more important than another board when they have complete jurisdiction over this.
I have to disagree with you, Jim.
Well,
because-
then take the money out of your pocket, get an opinion, but I'm not spending any more money. The attorney gave you 10 reasons, gave us 10 reasons, and there was one big reason that they left off that they didn't even put on there that I don't know how they missed it, but to go down that slippery slope that the Conservation Commission's not gonna give up on it, and then we're gonna wave a piece of paper and saying, let's go to battle. For what? A couple house lots that's gonna be spent quickly, and then you've got 3 or 4 kids going to the school, that, all those assets are gonna be wiped
We
out
could
in
talk
5
about
years
it all
from
night,
now.
but-
So I just don't want this board to be used as one person coming in, or 2 people representing a board for a second opinion against another board. It's happened before, and I don't want it to
That's
happen
what I
again.
just cautioned when I spoke to
And
Kevin.
then the
That's what
board
I was
changes, and
cautioning
then
Kevin
the
about.
opinions change, and then we go down the, it's just, you know what, the writing's on the
I
wall.
can- I totally understand the points that Kevin has made. You know, I think I would have appreciated if you had shared that information with me, Kevin, prior to this discussion. I was advised that Kevin spoke with you, Jim, about the question that I had asking about this, and that, you know, you, as chairman, have the authority to authorize that, but certainly didn't want to do that, wanted to bring it to the whole board for discussion, which I totally appreciate and would always support. You know, I think the information I'm hearing tonight is new to me. This is new information to me.
What, from what Kevin was saying?
From what Kevin
Yeah,
was saying. So
Lorraine
I
is-
did not have that information.
Lorraine
and
is hearing
certainly
for
would
the,
have taken a
Lorraine is
different
hearing, in
approach.
fairness to Lorraine, she's hearing for the first time my full report on my meeting with the commission. All I was able to do is give her a little smidge, which was that
So
they
had
voted
I
to
known
change
that, I would not have
Brought it forward.
brought it forward.
So
So I-
when was
you
the
know, I-
meeting?
The
When were you-
commission voted on this months and months ago, didn't they?
No.
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 They
Commission
brought
just
it
did
back
this
at the last
2
meeting.
weeks.
But
If you, only if you're going to speak.
Well, I think-
We can't hear you.
I think,
No.
I think I kept the idea alive until I had the chance to meet with the commission face to face, and Mark's correct. You know, I had said to the board just 2 or 3 weeks ago that I was hoping, you know, we'd find a compromise. And it wasn't until I had that meeting and was able to have an in-depth discussion a week ago yesterday, that I became convinced that, you know, it wasn't worth the turmoil that would happen. And my apologies, Lorraine, that I wasn't able to give you a full in-depth report, because it probably would have produced a different result, and I don't want you to feel badly that, you know.
Well, it's
feel like I
embarrassing,
didn't-
really, because, you know, if I had had that information, I think you wouldn't see this on the agenda. So, you know, I guess I just want to make the point that I went through the correct process. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to put you in this position, Jim, but, you know, I'm sorry that I'm sitting here in this position myself, so, you know,
No,
I,
I agree.
no need to discuss it any
Yeah.
further.
Okay, move on to warrant articles.
You don't have to take any action. You've already voted all the warrant articles that are in here.
This is just the latest,
Right.
greatest.
This is just the latest and greatest copy. And you can approve the warrant tonight, and then sign the signature page, and that's just one thing on the checklist, so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
One item I wanted to bring up, and I think I sent you guys an email of the issue of where the items come on the warrant, whether it's first or last.
Yeah,
Do you guys want to talk about that at all? I don't have any comments on it. I think that it's been vetted in the warrant articles appear to be in process, but I think the question that was posed to me is we have a very big item that affects history and future of the town being last. Should that be up earlier? And I don't have I know what happens when you move it up early, you get more people to see it, but maybe at a detriment to the smaller ones, or do you put it on the bottom to hope to keep everybody there? And it's probably more of a discussion we want to have tonight, but I just felt obligated to bring it to the board to see if you wanted to consider talking about the order or changing the order.
Who does make the order? Anybody, or is this the way they come in line?
says they come in, right?
I draft it with an order, which is what I give to you.
Yep.
And then, but the warrant is owned by the Board of Selectmen, according to statute. So you can do anything you want with it. Change the order, whatever you'd like.
Yeah, and we could be
It's
scrutinized
not too late
for
to do that.
too.
That's not going to screw up any of the,
No, I tell you honestly, what I do is I try to not always put the zoning at the end, because we often lose a quorum.
That's what
and
happened
the
last
planning
time.
board
It's
gets
always-
very upset.
Yeah.
And they made it very clear that they really would appreciate if I didn't do that again, and, that's not my practice, that's pretty universal in every town. So this year, I will tell you, I
Mostly as
put the
they
TIF at the
came in.
end, because the TIF is going to hold a quorum, no doubt about it. It's the only thing on the warrant that's controversial. I mean, there's just nothing on that warrant that's
Not even that
controversial.
controversial.
Well, I don't know if it is or it isn't,
Yeah,
but
but
it'll draw a
it's
lot
of
of...
more of
it'll
interest
draw a
than-
lot of...
Yeah, it's definitely more interest. I haven't heard any controversy throughout the community on it. I might have had 1-2 comments on it, so.
So do we want
Well,
to,
I think you haven't had comments on it because all the information hasn't come out about
Right,
it.
and add comments, and have you even worked on it yet?
We talked about it. I think it is going to be controversial.
Oh, what else is,
let me know when that's going to come up. Kevin, but your group has met with them and,
We will have
Figured
a
everything
report,
out, right?
the
Right.
report and the PowerPoint.
and you'll present that to
presentation
them?
is in
to
draft
AdCom?
form. And no, they haven't seen it, it's in draft form.
Okay,
You
so-
will see it first. The TIF is, by law, the TIF recommendation comes from the committee to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
Board of Selectmen decides whether or not to go forward. If you vote no, it's on the warrant, but it can't be acted on.
can't be active, okay.
If you vote yes, then I present it to the AdCom, and if the AdCom says yes, it gets presented at town meeting, and if town meeting approves it, then it still has to go to MOBD, Mass Office of Business Development, for
Right.
final approval. So
Okay.
it's quite a process.
All right, just wanted to know where your committee was on it.
So that draft is coming to us when?
Well, I actually was going to ask the board if you had any interest in having a special meeting next week for the TIF, if we can get it done. So, it's a huge body of work that's got to get done in the next 48 hours, and now I got another huge body of work to get done, i.e. my end-of-year report. So that's two huge assignments. So if we can get the PowerPoint and the report done, we're writing a narrative report that tells you what we did, by Friday, then if you tell me that you're willing to come to a meeting Tuesday night, then we'll send it all out to you in,
And then maybe we
read
can do the
form
discussion on the
and Tuesday
budget.
could. If Friday I can't get it done, then we'll send you an email and tell you no meeting, because, there's no point coming here if everything isn't buttoned up.
Okay.
So are you
Let's do
available Tuesday?
night.
Tuesday?
Whatever the board needs is fine with me.
Okay.
Maybe
So
if-
at least
if he
3 of us can make it on.
If he can get it done, maybe that's when we go over a couple of the questions for the rest of the budget.
And, I'm sure AdCom will be here, so if they want to be part of the discussion, maybe they want to post a meeting too. If it's going to be that controversial with AdCom, and we're going to have a meeting on the TIFs, I think AdCom should come too, and there's your joint meeting all on one article. If I'm not making this too explosive. for
Well, and I
everybody.
said we could put the budget thing on there too, just so they have a heads up before
Yeah.
we have questions on the budget.
I think if you can have another meeting, you need AdCom involved with this, because obviously Larry just stated they have issues with it already.
We're gonna-
Put you on the spot, Larry.
Want to try for that for Tuesday, Kevin?
Yeah, I will,
7
since
o'clock.
you're all available, I will get back to you on Friday and let you know if we're able to get it all done such that we can have a meeting productively.
Very good.
Okay, 2 more action, I think, James.
Can you take a motion to approve the warrant and sign the signature page? Because that document's only going to change with the budget added, the CIP added, and the meets and bounds and the easement article. Nothing else is going to
I
change.
move to approve the warrant article for the annual town meeting on May 13th, as presented.
Second?
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Lorraine. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Dan? All right, action items, we went through the minutes, went to National Grid. Request for acceptance of a $5,000 grant funds as part of the Commonwealth Strategy for Underage Alcohol Enforcement, presented by Chief O'Leary. So you have a letter asking for our approval in a letter from the state with the detail on it.
I move to approve acceptance of the $5,000 grant funds as part of the Commonwealth Strategy for Underage Alcohol Enforcement.
Second?
A motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
Just
Gratitude.
thanks, Rich Noonan, for continually to get these grants to keep our young folks safe.
All right, motion made, seconded. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We have an application, a request for a new hacky license from Kevin Michael McKinney of Leanne Way in Franklin. And with that, we have signatures from Chief O'Leary and the applicant.
I move that
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm not going to recommend you don't approve this one. I do think that we should put a moratorium on these, because this is now the 8th, 9th, or 10th, something like
Oh,
that.
you know what, we were talking
It's a
about
hacky
that.
It's a
This
hacky
is not
license
a-
for 2 years.
It's not a, this is for...
Taxi, hacky, same thing.
Yeah, last time we discussed that, you were talking about
Yeah, with constables.
constables.
No, same thing. Well,
We didn't...
almost the same thing. We're getting inundated with these taxi license requests, and we don't know why.
Well, it's because
But-
they explained it, they're merging all into one. And somebody explained that to us last time.
No, we think it's got to do with something else. All I'm going to say is, I don't think you want to issue 14, 15, or 16 of these, because there's no rhyme or reason for one little town to have that many taxi licenses. It's crazy.
Well,
We don't know why they're all applying all of a sudden, but we've been inundated with them.
It's because we
Business.
don't, no longer have access to a bus that takes you easily to Logan Airport.
So,
that
We used
why?
to-
they all leave...
It's the limousine service that takes you to Logan Airport.
yeah, I mean, if that's
They all
what,
leave...
Yeah.
Well, maybe that is, I don't know.
I mean, how are you gonna, if you don't wanna drive to Logan, how are you gonna get there? You get the
Jim will
limo to
pick
pick you up.
Jim will pick you
Yeah,
up.
Jim will take us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim's taxi service.
That's
But you
right.
see,
Well,
the ton
this
come in
one, in
also?
any event, was approved by the chief, so I don't think that's a problem.
All
I
right.
move that we approve the new hacky sack license. Hacky sack, that was good. So we could all play hacky sack. We need a license to play that now, didn't you know?
Everybody
I'm
played.
sure.
Hey, maybe we should think of that for new fees, if
Well,
you're gonna play hacky
speaking of
sack.
that, what, the license fee is 20 and it says paid 45. Did the fee go up?
No, we didn't.
Additional one-time only review, okay, I see 20.
We don't
It's the
45.
new
Yep,
license,
they're both
so,
together.
for, the hacky license for Kevin McKinney.
Second?
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Motion
Aye.
carries 5-0. All right, we have, we were solicited with an email, and I forwarded it to Sandra, for a Childhood Cancer Awareness Week in Foxborough with the proclamation. So, Lorraine, you want to read this, just so people understand what it is?
Childhood Cancer Awareness Week. Whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection report cancer as the leading cause of death by disease among children in the United States. This tragic disease is detected in nearly 15,000 of our nation's young people each and every year, and whereas founded 20 years ago by Stephen Firestein, a member of the philanthropic Max Factor family, the American Cancer Fund for Children, Incorporated, and sister organization Kids Cancer Connection, Incorporated, are dedicated to helping these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection provide a variety of vital patient psychosocial services to children undergoing cancer treatment at the Dana-Farber Children's Hospital Cancer Center, Mass General Hospital for Children, Floating Hospital for Children at Tufts Medical Center in Boston, as well as participating hospitals throughout the country, thereby enhancing the quality of life for these children and their families. And whereas through its uniquely sensitive and comforting Magical Caps for Kids program, the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection distributes thousands of beautifully handmade caps and decorated baseball caps to children who want to protect their heads following the trauma of chemotherapy, surgery, and/or radiation treatments. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection also sponsor nationwide Courageous Kid Recognition award ceremonies and hospital celebrations in honor of a child's determination and bravery to fight the battle against childhood cancer. Now, therefore, we, the Foxborough Board of Selectmen, officially proclaim April 21st through April 27th, 2013, as Childhood Cancer Awareness Week. In witness thereof, we have set our hand and caused the seal of town of Foxborough to be affixed on this day of March 19th, 2013.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Proclamation for a week.
Thank you.
And there was 3 items, Chapter 90 street list, response to correspondence, that's regarding the water.
The board had asked for that. Just
Yeah.
wanted to let you know, we did all the ones we could.
Yep.
And the ones that are left, we don't recommend that we do them.
Okay, and then a license to engage in the business of outdoor advertising.
That's our permit on the water tank.
Yep.
Hopefully the RFP will be going forward.
It's all set.
Okay. All right, any other items before we go into executive session for the purposes of negotiating with non-union and a review of our executive session minutes? Nope. Okay, so we'll make a motion.
Oh, I move that we adjourn to, I thought you just said it, to executive session for, to talk negotiations with non-union personnel and review executive session minutes, and to
Solely return.
return only for the sole purpose of adjournment.
Okay, motion made, seconded.
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in discussion, all those in favor, Linda?
Yes.
Ginny?
Lorraine?
Yes.
Ginny? I don't know why.
Jackie said, hey.
Yes.
Every time. And say yes, thank you. And good night, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much.